Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. One task per week, starting from the Goddess of Flash Marriage. Chapter 81. Yang Yuyan was startled. The mint ice in my mouth almost spit out. What did you say? Ji Yu Xiaoxiao lowered his voice and said word by word. I said, your husband is having dinner with your fiancé. Yang Yuyan quickly turned around and looked in the direction of Ji Yu Xiaoxiao's finger. At a glance, he saw Lin Yang chatting happily. Lu Sheng was sitting with his back to her. Yang Yuyan couldn't see his face clearly, but looking at his back made her inexplicably think of the man in the copy. Yang Yuyan turned her head and asked in a low voice. Xiao Xiao, are you sure that the one with his back to me is Lu Sheng who got the marriage certificate with me? Ji Yu Xiaoxiao nodded with great confirmation. I saw it when he turned his head just now. It's absolutely true. Yang Yuyan couldn't believe her eyes. But in my impression, he is obviously a fat man. How come he has lost so much weight after not seeing him for several weeks? Ji Yu Xiaoxiao shrugged. Who knows, maybe I'm losing weight for love. Go, go, go. Yang Yuyan rolled her eyes at Ji Yu Xiaoxiao. Why did he meet Lin Yang? Ji Yu Xiaoxiao pouted, looking at the ceiling and thinking. Let me tell you, that fat man was deliberately placed next to you by Lin Yang. I kept saying that I didn't know you before. It turns out that men are not good at all. Yang Yuyan thoughtfully stirred the lime mint ice in front of her with a straw. That's not right, Xiaoxiao. I picked Lu Sheng randomly at that time. How could Lin Yang know who I would choose? Ji Yu Xiaoxiao couldn't figure out the reason for a while and kept eating the cuttlefish bite after bite. Suddenly an idea flashed in my mind. I see. Yang Yuyan was startled and quickly made a low-pitched gesture. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao stuck out his tongue and said softly. Lin Yang must be trying to bribe that fat man to divorce you. Just wait. In a few days, this fat man will talk to you about divorce. Yang Yuyan felt angry for no reason. If that were the case, she would definitely look down on this man. But having said that, the back of this man is exactly the same as the deer in the copy. And both of them have the word, deer, in their names. Could it be the same person? The dinner between Lu Sheng and three people ended hastily in an atmosphere that Lin Yang considered elegant and arrogant. Lu Sheng decisively rejected Lin Yang's proposal to arrange a hotel for himself. He said that he wanted to walk around Shengjing City, so there was no need for trouble. Lin Yang wished that Lu Sheng would reject him, so he looked at Yu Huayan impatiently. Then I'll take Huayan home. Yu Huayan was indeed a little tired after running around for a few days, but he also decisively rejected Lin Yang's kindness. No need, my grandfather has already sent someone to pick me up. Lin Yang felt bored and turned around to leave. But before leaving, I didn't forget to remind them. Don't tell outsiders about what happened in the factory today until we find out everything. Yu Huayan already knew that he invited the two of them to dinner, and it must be for this reason, so he said calmly. We also have our own discipline. Lin Yang then left with peace of mind. After Lin Yang left, Yu Huayan also said goodbye to Lu Sheng. You really don't need me to book a room for you. Lu Sheng nodded affirmatively, and Yu Huayan turned around and walked towards the underground garage without stopping. Lu Sheng walked alone on the overpass in front of the skyscraper shopping mall. Looking at the crowds of people and the endless flow of vehicles below, I can't help but sigh. He originally thought that most people in this world had less than 100 points and lived in the suburbs. But I didn't expect that there would be so many people with more than 1,000 points. This made him suddenly feel that even if he now had more than 2,000 points, there was nothing to be happy about. He is still just an ordinary person in this world. He looked up at the skyscraper shopping mall next to him. There is still a long way to go to reach the top again. Lu Sheng was engrossed in looking at the roof of the building, but he didn't notice that a few hundred meters away from him, there were two tightly wrapped slender figures secretly watching him. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao leaned next to Yang Yuyan and asked softly. Did you see his face clearly? Is he really the undercover agent? Yang Yuyan nodded with certainty. At the end of the mission, I looked at his face specifically, and it was him. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao suddenly realized. Then it's no wonder you said you felt like you were staring at him for a long time in the dungeon, but you didn't receive any punishment. He is basically your contract husband. Yang Yuyan was shocked and said to herself. This is too much of a coincidence, and his appearance has really changed a lot. Ji Xiaoxiao suddenly smiled evilly and poked Yang Yuyan's arm. What do you mean, Xiaoyan? Are you attracted to your contract husband? Don't tell me, this fat guy looks quite delicate based on his facial features. If he loses weight, he will definitely be a handsome guy. Yang Yuyan quickly pushed Ji Xiaoxiao away. What's the matter? I just cooperated with him once in a dungeon, and I feel that he is not as simple as he seems. She then observed Lu Sheng carefully. Because I knew it was because of my contracted husband, I didn't deliberately dodge my gaze this time. You said that when he met Lin Yang just now, was he really discussing divorcing me? Ji Xiaoxiao shrugged. I don't know. If it's true, he should contact you after a while. But judging from his appearance, his family conditions are probably not very good, so the possibility is quite high. Yang Yuyan didn't know what she was thinking. She nodded silently and suddenly exclaimed. Xiao Xiao, do you see what he is doing secretly? Ji Xiaoxiao followed Yang Yuyan's gaze. I saw Lu Sheng cautiously approaching a trash can on an overpass. After looking around cautiously, he quickly picked up a branch from the trash can and rummaged through the trash can skillfully. Ji Xiaoxiao suddenly felt like he was turning to stone again. He murmured to himself, the last time I saw him, he was digging out trash cans, too. I asked him what he was doing, and he said something important had fallen inside. But the current situation seems like he loves to dig through trash cans. Yang Yuyan looked at Lu Sheng's profile, her eyes showing a trace of sympathy. It seems that his family conditions are really bad. Xiao Xiao, do you think I should find an opportunity to transfer some money to him? Lu Sheng, who was carefully picking up garbage at this time, had no idea that every move he made was caught in the eyes of Yang Yuyan and the two. The reason why he carefully rummaged through the trash can was because he just saw an orange title suddenly light up above the trash can. A trash can with a big surprise. Once the orange title comes out, the trash can in front of you can no longer be a trash can. It immediately transformed into a treasure chest. Lu Sheng looked around cautiously, and when he found that no one was paying attention, he quickly stepped forward to explore. After a long period of tinkering, Lu Sheng finally heard a familiar, ding, sound in his ears. Then a pair of poker-like props appeared in his inventory. Lu Sheng reached out and clicked on the attribute details of the prop. Prop name, Good and Evil Poker. Prop rating, Epic A. Introduction to the props. You can invite anyone to start a game of Good and Evil Poker, and the other person cannot refuse. Once the game starts, you need to choose whether to be an angel or a demon. The cards in the angel's hand are all the good things the opponent has done, and the cards in the devil's hand are all the bad things the opponent has done. Angels and demons will play cards against each other, the winner will live and the loser will die. Lu Sheng looked at the introduction of the props and couldn't help but secretly sighed. I don't know which side will have the advantage based on the number of good and evil poker cards I have. In his opinion, Angel should have more cards in his hand. But Lu Sheng, who had found something good, immediately became excited. The trash cans in Shangjing City must be of good quality. Since we finally came here once, if we don't turn over 10 or 8 things, wouldn't it be a wasted trip? Lu Sheng did what he said, immediately ran off the overpass, swept a shared bicycle, and started looking for trash cans all over the street. Yang Yuyan and Ji Xiaoxiao on the other side of the overpass looked at each other. What is he going to do now? Is he here to scan goods in bulk? Lu Sheng rode his bicycle and frantically searched for trash cans on the busy streets of Shangjing City. But what disappointed him was that after riding 9 streets in a row, there was no orange trash can. The only thing that is still passable is a rare B-level prop, strange seasoning. Item name, weird seasoning. Item rating, rare B. Introduction to the props, special seasoning for cooking weird things. After applying it, the weird things can be enjoyed as delicacies. In fact, no matter what you put on it, it will taste delicious after being sprinkled with seasonings. Lu Sheng put the weird seasoning into the item list, feeling somewhat regretful. It seems that the quality of this trash can has little to do with which city it is in. He didn't want to stay longer in Shangjing City, so he took a taxi overnight and returned to Zhonglin City. At 12 o'clock in the middle of the night, Lu Sheng, who was lying comfortably on the bed, couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Still comfortable at home. I slept until noon the next day. It's Sunday again and new weekly tasks are coming soon. This week's weekly mission, Only You in My Heart, is probably the most difficult one since the advent of the Mander game. The whole world has become cautious this week. Fortunately, we finally made it to Sunday. People who had been holding back for a whole week finally became active. Whether it's in the player forum or on the TV, it's finally starting to have some life. On the player forum, some people began to post one after another, sharing some strategies for this week's copy peach feast. Lu Sheng took a quick look and found that most of the players had not completed the final assassination mission. There are very few undercover players who win, and I haven't seen any players mention taking flat peaches. TV has finally begun to broadcast special programs on weekly tasks normally. It's just that the host is still wearing a neutral animal headgear to prevent viewers from accidentally exploding and dying while watching the show. Regarding this week's task, both hosts on TV complained repeatedly. Some say that they are too timid to go out, while others say that they have finally figured out a way to not miss other people of the opposite gender. All in all, we are all happy to be able to finish this week's tasks soon. What impressed Lu Sheng most was a number mentioned by the two hosts. It is said that in this week, the number of deaths worldwide reached 12 million. It became the deadliest week in Mander game history. Unknowingly, the time came to 11:59 in the evening. As the 10-second countdown on the TV ended, this week's mission finally came to its final settlement. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao and Yang Yuyan leaned on the sofa as usual, nervously watching the final score. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao sighed regretfully. I only got 10 points this week, 7 points for missing you every day, 3 points for turning a blind eye, and 0 points for answering and ignoring you. Sure enough, there can't be only one man in my life. Attached are the scoring rules to avoid scrolling forward. 1 miss you every day, 0 to 7 points, think of him or her once a day, and you will get 1 point. This is easy. 2 turn a blind eye, 0 10 points, 10 points are awarded for never staring at another person of the opposite gender for more than 3 seconds, 1 point is deducted for each person stared at, and no points are awarded for more than 10 people. 3 reply and ignore. You have never said a word to another person of the opposite gender, you can get 100 points. Unlike Ji Yu Xiaoxiao, who was slightly depressed, Yang Yuyan suddenly exclaimed. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao asked quickly. Xiaoyan, what's wrong? Yang Yuyan covered her mouth and said. I scored 115 points this week, and I really got a perfect score of 100 for being indifferent. This also means that the undercover deer in that copy is really his contract partner Lu Sheng. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao deliberately fanned the air with his hand. Humph, the house is filled with the sour smell of love. Yang Yuyan quickly pushed Ji Yu Xiaoxiao hard. Xiaoxiao, stop talking nonsense, who is in love? In the Lulin community in the outer ring of Zhonglan City, Lu Sheng also clicked on his score details. I saw it read, total points earned for this mission, 7 points. The details of points obtained are 7 points for missing you every day, 0 points for turning a blind eye, 0 points for answering and ignoring you. The current total points are 2,917 points. Since he couldn't see the bonus points details, Lu Sheng didn't understand why the 2 items of turning a blind eye and ignoring the questions were 0 points. But he can probably guess that thinking about you every day should be thinking about your significant other every day. Fortunately, in order to prevent himself from blowing up, he would secretly look at Yang Yuyan's poster every day. It was a mistake, and I got 7 points this time. However, compared with the previous 2 weeks, my luck this week was still a little worse, and I could only score in single digits. A minute later, a new weekly task popped up on time. This week's task. Love must be spoken out loud. Task description. Why can't I say that I love her? If you hold it in your heart, you will die. Conditions to achieve. Call the other person, husband, wife, at least once a day and say, I love you, once a day. Those who are unwilling to speak deserve to explode. Extra points rules. Only visible to members circled plus. Task completion status. 0/7. Lu Sheng looked at the circled plus number behind the bonus point rules and hesitated for a while, whether to open a yearly membership so that he could know the details of the bonus points. But after thinking about it, I still felt a little reluctant to get those 258 points, so I gave up. As for this week's task, in terms of difficulty, it is much easier than last week. There wasn't much of a problem in completing it. The only problem was that he still felt a little shy to say the 5 words, "Wife, I love you." At this moment, he suddenly remembered that he didn't seem to have Yang Yuyan's contact information. So I quickly sent a message to Jiyu Xiaoxiao. "Xiaoxiao, can you send me Yang Yuyan's contact information?" Jiyu Xiaoxiao looked at the message sent by Lu Sheng and said, "Yeah. Xiaoyan, you and that fat guy haven't become friends with each other yet." At this moment, Yang Yuyan is still stuck in the inner struggle of seeing this week's task. What is this? If you want to call a stranger your husband, how can you say it out loud? At this time, when he heard Jiyu Xiaoxiao ask himself, he answered absently. I thought it was over after getting the marriage certificate. Who knew there would be follow-up tasks, so I didn't add his contact information. Jiyu Xiaoxiao laughed, lying on the sofa with his back, and deliberately teased. They are obviously a young couple, but they have no contact information with each other. What's wrong? Are they quarreling? Yang Yuyan snorted. You can't think of anything serious in that head. Okay, then I'll send him your contact information. Yang Yuyan responded softly. Lu Sheng was lying on the sofa, feeling very uneasy. Originally, according to the style of taking care of Xiaoxiao, he should have replied to the message a long time ago. There was no reply for so long this time. Could it be that Yang Yuyan did not agree to give her contact information? If this is the case, then how to complete the task? After all, "I love you, my wife," cannot be relayed by Jiyu Xiaoxiao. Just when he was still thinking wildly, he suddenly saw Jiyu Xiaoxiao's message box pop up. It's Yang Yuyan's contact information. Lu Sheng was overjoyed and quickly clicked on adding friends. At this time, I saw the message from Jiyu Xiaoxiao. Hey, fatty, I haven't replied to you for so long. Are you nervous? Are you thinking that my precious wife is unwilling to give me her contact information? Why? Jiyu Xiaoxiao was like a parrot who had been holding back for several years and was not allowed to speak. At this moment, the seal was suddenly released, and the talkative ones were poured out like beans. Although Lu Sheng felt helpless about the baby wife that Jiyu Xiaoxiao said. But it must also be admitted that Jiyu Xiaoxiao did fully express his psychological activities. So I replied without any hesitation. Yes. Jiyu Xiaoxiao's teasing voice immediately came from the other end. Oh, it's so shameless to recognize your precious wife so soon. Lu Sheng suddenly felt a headache. He hurriedly typed a paragraph to explain and wanted to send it, but after thinking about it, he deleted it. I feel like I would be a big fool if I explained it seriously. Jiyu Xiaoxiao saw that Lu Sheng had not replied to his message and didn't know what he was thinking. So another message was sent. Hey, fatty, do you know that the only time I was punished during last week's mission was because I was thinking about someone? Of course, Lu Sheng replied. I do not know. Jiyu Xiaoxiao immediately replied excitedly. It's you, fat man. How about it? Is it an honor to be remembered by this lady for 3 seconds? Lu Sheng didn't know how to reply to Jiyu Xiaoxiao for a while, so he listened to Jiyu Xiaoxiao talking to himself again. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Didn't you tell me last time that you didn't have the points to open a membership? As an annual user, I have 4 family and friend experience coupons, and I've given them all to you. You must get a high score this time. The last few words of the voice seemed particularly mysterious, as if she was holding some bad water in her stomach. Lu Sheng used the experience coupon that Jiyu Xiaoxiao gave to her relatives and friends and clicked on it. Extra points rules. Only visible to members circled plus. Detailed bonus points details are listed below. Extra points rules for members only. 1 confession in public, 0-10 points. Confession in public with more than 10 people, you can get 1 point at a time, capped at 10 points. 2 romantic confession, 0-10 points. The more romantic the confession, the more points you can get. 3 final confession. Remember to say I love you to your significant other before you die. Both parties can get a 100-point reward. This is the first time Lu Sheng has seen the bonus points details. It turns out that the content of membership rights is so detailed. No wonder many people are willing to activate membership rights. However, the extra points this time were really difficult for Lu Sheng. Public confessions and romantic confessions are things Lu Sheng cannot do. Not to mention that final confession. What's the meaning? To get 100 points, one of them has to die. While Lu Sheng was still studying the extra point rules, Yang Yuyan's friend application was actually approved. Looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar avatar, Lu Sheng couldn't help but feel his heart pounding. Gotta say something. Say hello. Will it look too dull? Then ask how you were lately, okay. But I don't seem to be that familiar with her. I waited over and over in my mind for a long time, but didn't utter a single word. And Yang Yuyan on the other end didn't seem to know what to say. The two young couples, who had just added their address book, were awkwardly silent in the chat window for a long time. Until Lu Sheng sent out 5 words that were both abrupt and reasonable. I love you, my wife. Yang Yuyan was stunned for a moment, and her beautiful face was suddenly covered with red clouds. But then he realized that Lu Sheng was completing his mission. So he quickly asked, have you completed your mission? Lu Sheng quickly checked his task panel and saw that the task completion status column still read 07. That is, unfinished. So he replied, slightly frustrated. It's not finished. It should be sending a message saying I love you. If we must meet to talk, I can come to see you every day. Yang Yuyan then looked at this week's tasks carefully. You should call the other person, husband, wife, and say, I love you, at least once a day. Those who are unwilling to speak deserve to explode. She suddenly seemed to understand something, but it was difficult to speak when the words came to her lips. After struggling for a long time, I finally plucked up the courage and sent a voice message to Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng was thinking about whether to go find Yang Yuyan after dawn, when he suddenly saw a voice message jumping in. He immediately clicked on the voice button, and a gentle female voice shouted slightly stiffly. Husband, I love you. Lu Sheng was so shy that his face flushed red, and he was so excited that his nose almost started to bleed. While cursing himself for being hopeless, he took a long time to calm down. Then asked in the dialogue box, how's it going? Did you complete the mission? Yang Yuyan's reply came quickly. Finished. It turns out that it doesn't have to be done in person, as long as it's spoken out. Lu Sheng then took a deep breath and said to Yang Yuyan at the other end, I love you, my wife. 10 seconds later, Lu Sheng found that the completion status on his task panel had also changed to 1/7. Complete the mission successfully. Lu Sheng breathed a sigh of relief and lay down on the bed. But 5 minutes later, he suddenly sat up nervously again. Then what? Need to say anything else? Is this the end? Wouldn't it be impolite? These entanglements of Lu Sheng happened to be the entanglements in Yang Yuyan's heart. She didn't know whether to continue talking. The two were surprisingly consistent, and once again neither sent a message to the other. The first communication ended in a hurry. The next morning, Lu Sheng got up early. After chatting with Yang Yuyan, he suddenly had the urge to lose weight quickly. The magic of saying, I love you, is really powerful. So after a simple wash, he immediately stepped onto the hyperspace treadmill. With the help of the fatigue hard drive, Lu Sheng ran for 20 hours this time. I ran until 12 o'clock at noon when I had to stop because I had to wait for the new copy to be released. However, what makes Lu Sheng strange is that he waited until 2 p.m. today and did not see any new copies pop up. How is this going? With doubts in his heart, Lu Sheng clicked on the Global Gamer forum. Only then did I realize that there were many people who had the same questions as me. Under a post titled, Master, please come in, why is there no copy released today? Many people responded enthusiastically. The original poster is a newbie who just started paying attention to the dungeon. The dungeon is never released on Monday at noon. Before the release of this series of copies of Afterlife Flower and Lotus of the Other Side, no new copies had been released for more than a year. That's right, many of the previous copies were single copies, not in a series, and sometimes they appeared very suddenly. After reading everyone's replies on the forum, Lu Sheng finally understood that there was no rule in the release of copies. For Lu Sheng, who was used to 2 dungeons a week, this suddenly became a bit unaccustomed. He was referring to people who downloaded dungeons every week to earn points and money. If I don't download the dungeon this week, I'm afraid my uncle's medical expenses will not be paid. As luck would have it, just as Lu Sheng was thinking about his uncle's medical expenses, he received a call from his aunt. Xiaolu, Uncle's medicine is almost used up. When will you come to the hospital to pay Uncle's medicine for next week? Lu Sheng couldn't help but feel angry and funny after listening to his aunt's words. A few days ago, he kicked himself out of the house so mercilessly, but now he acted like nothing happened and asked for medical expenses. Why are there such utilitarian and shameless people in the world? In fact, Lu Sheng felt like a mirror to his aunt's little calculation. It's just because this week's task is to say I love you to my significant other every day. She was afraid that Lu Sheng would suddenly not pay for the medicine, and if her uncle passed away, she would have to passively find someone else to get the marriage certificate. Otherwise, if she didn't complete the task in one day, she would have to chase her uncle. Of course Lu Sheng would not let his aunt live a peaceful life. He decided to let her go for a few more days, until the end, and then pay for the medical expenses. Let her live a few more days of fear. After hanging up the phone, Lu Sheng lay halfly on the sofa and turned on the TV. After leaving his uncle's house, the greatest freedom for him was that he finally no longer had to watch the Blue Elephant Guild's press conference. This time Lu Sheng moved to the press conference of Shengshan Guild. Sure enough, we found that there is still a relatively obvious gap between the Super Union and the second-level guild. Whether it is from the lighting arrangement of the scene, the hosting of the live broadcast room, or the order of questions, it is obviously much more professional. At this time, the press conference has just begun. Yang Yuyan wore a black and white sleeveless tube top dress and sat in the middle of the press conference. She was as beautiful as a fairy. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao sat on her left and Luo Baishan sat on her right. Since Yang Yuyan had not been seen for a whole week, the barrage in the live broadcast room was like a sudden explosion. Blockbusters of Yang Yuyan's support slogans floated across the TV screen. Lu Sheng was dazzled by what he saw. At this time, a media reporter asked, "I would like to ask, what are the dungeon arrangements for Shengshan Guild this week?" Yang Yuyan took the microphone and replied very appropriately. "If no new dungeon is released this week, Shengshan Guild will release a dungeon of Peach Feast this week. If a new dungeon is released within this week, the priority will be to clear the new dungeon." Another reporter raised his hand and asked, "I would like to ask Yu Yan, did you personally try to download the copy of Peach Feast last week? If so, what was the result?" Yang Yuyan smiled slightly at the audience in front of the TV screen. "I personally downloaded a copy of Peach Feast last week, and the identity I won was an undercover agent, but I was lucky enough to successfully clear the level in the end." As soon as Yang Yuyan finished speaking, the barrage immediately went crazy again. Our Xiaoyan is really amazing. I have read dozens of bloggers' strategy sharings in the past few days, and only Xiaoyan has successfully passed the level. And I still cleared the level undercover, it's so NB. Kneel down and beg the goddess to clear the level. The content on the barrage was projected on the screen in front of Yang Yuyan in real time. Looking at the rainbow farts filling the screen, Yang Yuyan couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Because she knew that most of the credit for her clearance was actually Lu Sheng's. So she specifically looked at the camera and added, "The reason why I was able to pass the level as an undercover agent this time was related to the help of another undercover team member of mine. I also want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to him. I don't know if he can see it, but I still want to say, thank you Xiaolu. Without you, it would be difficult for me to pass the level alone." The barrage in the live broadcast room was instantly filled with crazy fans. Most of them are, "Thank you Xiaolu for taking care of Xiaoyan. Thank you Xiaolu for taking care of Xiaoyan plus 10,086. But some also expressed their envy for this little dear. "If I can be teammates with Xiaoyan, I must have saved the galaxy in my previous life." When Lu Sheng heard Yang Yuyan thanking him in front of millions of viewers, a warm current suddenly surged up in his heart. Compared with the utilitarian and realistic aunt's family, although Yang Yuyan and Ji Yu Xiaoxiao are not relatives, they have brought them a little warmth in the world. The press conference finally ended under a barrage of questions from many reporters. After Yang Yuyan left the press conference, she returned to the captain's office of Shengshan Guild. Today she will also compile a complete dungeon guide to help the guild members successfully pass the Peach Feast. At this moment, Ji Yu Xiaoxiao suddenly ran in a hurry. "Xiaoyan is not okay. Your fiancé brought someone to the guild to cause trouble." Yang Yuyan suddenly frowned. Lin Yang, what's wrong with him? Ji Yu Xiaoxiao said angrily. He just brought a dozen people to the lobby of Shengshan Guild and said he wanted to see you, but Luo Bishan and the others stopped him. He's making a big noise in the lobby right now, saying that if you don't get out, he's going to smash our guild. Yang Yuyan's face instantly turned livid. She was already thin-skinned, but Lin Yang came to the guild to cause trouble in front of everyone. How could she have the honor to meet the members of her guild in the future? So he stood up immediately and walked quickly to the Union Hall. 2 weeks ago, Lin Yang expressed his hope to Yang Yuyan's father, Yang Kaishan, through his father Lin Shang, that Yang Yuyan could get a divorce and request that he get a new marriage certificate. After all, he thought he was Yang Yuyan's serious fiancé. How could he tolerate his fiancé marrying another man? But due to the weekly task of Only You in My Heart last week, Lin Yang had no choice but to put this matter on hold. But this week, I saw that the task became Speak Love Out Loud. When I think about my fiancé having to say, "Husband, I love you," to another man every day. Lin Yang's heart felt like it was going to explode. Although he has lived until now, he has had many women. But how can those women compare with the national goddess? Yang Yuyan's appearance and family background are not comparable to those vulgar fans. What's more, her own celebrity aura can bring huge blessings to her business. Therefore, Yang Yuyan is the woman he must win and must win. That's why he rushed here in such a hurry. But he never thought that he, the young master of Lin Sheng Medical and the fiancé of Yang Yuyan, would be stopped in the lobby by the members of Shengshan Guild. Lin Yang, who had always been used to being arrogant, suddenly became furious. He ordered his men to smash and destroy everything in the lobby of Shengshan Guild. The entire Shengshan Guild hall was filled with smoke and smoke. Suddenly he heard a woman shouting loudly in his ear. Lin Yang, what exactly do you want to do? Lin Yang's eyes lit up and he quickly turned to look in the direction from which the sound came. Seeing it was Yang Yuyan, she immediately said angrily. Oh, my fiancé finally came out. They stopped me and refused to let me in. I had no choice but to do this. As he spoke, Lin Yang took off his glasses from the bridge of his nose, put them in front of his mouth, took a breath, and then slowly started wiping them. He looked like he was the one who had been wronged. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao looked at the messy lobby and felt furious. Lin Yang, I'm warning you, if you dare to come to Shengshan Guild to cause trouble again, I will notify the Public Security Department immediately. Lin Yang glanced at Ji Yu Xiaoxiao with disdain, seemingly not taking her threat seriously at all. He put away his smile, put on his glasses again, and stared at Yang Yuyan. Yang Yuyan, you are my fiancé, and now you have obtained the certificate behind my back and someone else's. I should warn you, right? Yang Yuyan looked at Lin Yang with cold eyes and said in a cold voice. Lin Yang, let me tell you one last thing. The so-called contract between us was made by my grandfather. But what age are we in now? It should have been cancelled long ago. I am not your fiancé, and I don't admit that I have any fiancé. I have now received the certificate and have my own husband. You don't have to pester me anymore, and I will never be able to get the marriage certificate with you. Yang Yuyan's words were calm and collected, but her determination could be heard in every word she said. Lin Yang's face suddenly darkened. He was originally pretending to be elegant, but after listening to Yang Yuyan's words, he simply stopped pretending to be polite. He pointed at Yang Yuyan's nose and said word by word. Yang Yuyan, how can you tear up the engagement between us if you want? Don't you care about your Shengshan Guild the most? I have 100 ways to make him stink on the streets, just wait for me. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao yelled. Lin Yang, what exactly do you want to do? Lin Yang laughed angrily. I came to your guild hall to look for you this time to give you face. If you haven't divorced me yet, I'm afraid I will have to go to your press conference. Lin Yang's words immediately made all the members of the Shengshan Guild furious. To cause trouble at Shengshan Guild's press conference is to destroy your own guild in front of millions of people. What is intolerable is unbearable. Immediately, some members of the guild wanted to step forward and teach this arrogant young man a lesson. At this moment, a new notification message jumped in front of everyone's eyes. New Dungeon Preview. The third act of the dungeon series of Afterlife Flower and Lotus of the Other Side, Causing Havoc in the Sky, will be launched this Wednesday at 12 noon. This copy will adopt a camp confrontation mode that has never appeared since the advent of the Mander game. Your favorite guild can finally have a strong dialogue in the dungeon. Who is strong and who is weak is no longer a verbal exchange. Hurry up and log into the following website to vote for the guild showdown you want to see. For more exciting information, please look forward to the new copy officially released at noon on Wednesday, Raise the Sky. As if to challenge the person, he issued a declaration of war on the spot. The copy released by the Mander Game project team this time comes at just the right time. Yang Yuyan looked at Lin Yang calmly and said calmly and confidently, "Aren't you going to embarrass our Shungshan Guild? Why not take this opportunity to have a showdown with your Angel Guild? Who will be embarrassed? We will know after the competition." Lin Yang's face twitched slightly. "Well, it's time for you to see who is the best guild in the world." When the copy came out, Lu Sheng was taking a nap. When he woke up, 2 hours had passed since the dungeon preview. As soon as he saw the news about the new copy, he quickly logged into the player forum. As he expected, in just 2 hours, the player forum had exploded. Thousands of posts, hundreds of thousands of comments. The player forum, which had been silent for a week, was as lively as a holiday. Under almost every post, players are shouting that this is simply a series of lifetime. "Oh my god, I didn't expect to see the confrontation between guilds in my lifetime. Those guilds that provoked war fans before can now stop. In 2 days, we will see who is stronger and who is weaker. Have you looked at the voting website? Hurry up and vote. It is said that this time you can be divided into groups according to the voting results." No, have you watched the dual vote between Shungshan Guild and Angel Guild? What is this scenario? Lu Sheng then also opened the voting website to see what the situation was that everyone was exclaiming, "What's going on?" On the voting website, the results of the guild duel voted by all players were arranged according to the number of votes. Among them, the 2 guilds that ranked first were Shungshan Guild vs. Angel Guild, with a total of 124 million votes. It was nearly 100 million votes higher than the second-ranked 2-match showdown between Shungshan Guild vs. Dragon Capture Guild. This caused many passers-by to exclaim on the player forum, "Oh my god, what exactly is the grudge between the Shungshan Guild and the Angel Guild?" In less than 2 hours, 124 million votes were cast. Can any fans of the 2 companies come forward to say something? Fans of the Angel Guild said they were completely confused. "I am a fan of the Shungshan Guild. I just received a request from the group leader today to vote with all my strength for the showdown with the Angel Guild." Why? Tell me. There were many posts discussing gossip, but Lu Sheng was not interested in these at all. In the Super Guild, he only knows Shungshan and Angel. Wouldn't it be good to have a higher number of votes? He then scrolled down again, trying to find out the dual situation of the Blue Elephant Guild. It was found that the showdown with the same level guild, the Clown Guild, had the highest number of votes, with 1.1 million votes. Of course, there are also fans of the Blue Elephant Guild who are not willing to give in and want to join the Class A Guild. But in those duels, only Blue Elephant's own fans are usually enjoying themselves, and the other party doesn't pay attention at all. Therefore, the highest number of votes is only 120,000. It is the Antelope Guild that is behind the Class A guilds. Lu Sheng had nothing to do and held a poll between Shungshan Guild vs. Blue Elephant Guild. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. At 12 o'clock at noon on Wednesday, the new copy, Havoc in the Sky, was updated on time. The new promotional interface and exciting advertising slogans both highlight how different this copy is. In the most conspicuous part of the copy poster, 3 lines of gilded characters are particularly eye-catching. Unprecedented scale, unparalleled rewards, an unprecedented showdown. Every line of big characters is like a heavy hammer, hitting every player's heart hard. Players can already feel the crazy secretion of adrenaline hormones even before they log into the dungeon. Below the poster is a flaming book now button and a bright yellow copy description. 1. This copy will adopt the Guild Plus Amateur mode. Both sides of the battle will be composed of a guild and randomly assigned amateurs. If you want to experience the thrill of playing a dungeon with guild players, now is the time. To all guilds who want to participate in this instance, please submit a reservation application before 9 p.m. today. And it will be online at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. All guild duels will be decided sequentially by rankings on the voting website. 3. In this duel, 500 points will be deducted from the losing camp, and those with insufficient points will die. 4. All the first batch of players to participate in the test will receive a super prize of an additional 200 points once they win the copy. Liu Sheng clicked the reservation button without any hesitation. He had a hunch that this dungeon of Havoc in the Sky might become the dungeon with the largest number of amateur participants in history. After all, the temptation of the super grand prize of 200 points is too great. Voting results on the voting website officially close at 9 p.m. Not surprisingly, Shungshan Guild vs. Angel Guild received 600 million votes, ranking first. For Liu Sheng, this result is nothing more than fun. As an amateur, if you want to be in a group with these two super guilds, the probability is about the same as finding a needle in a haystack. Besides, it may not be a good thing. Early the next morning, Jackdaw Express knocked on the window and door of Liu Sheng's house on time. Liu Sheng politely took the gift box and entered the dungeon world at 10 o'clock as specified by the game. Time passed before his eyes, and Liu Sheng came to that spotless world again. However, what is different from the past is that this time there are no 3 problems in the sky. Instead, there is another line of large characters. Waiting for guild members to join, current readiness status 4/13. Liu Sheng was surprised. Guild? What guild? At this time, he saw a faint red light on his left wrist. That was the token bracelet that Yang Yuyan gave him at the end of the previous copy. At that time, Liu Sheng casually put it on his hand and never took it off. At this moment, the pendant with the Shungshan Guild logo on the bracelet was flickering regularly, as if breathing. Liu Sheng seemed to understand something. Is it possible that wearing this pendant given by Yang Yuyan will be regarded as a member of the Shungshan Guild by default and assigned to the same group as them? Liu Sheng had mixed feelings in his heart, and he didn't know whether it was good or bad to be assigned to a group with Shungshan Guild. All he can do now is wait quietly for all the team members to be ready. The number of people ready displayed in the sky is slowly increasing. In a short time, all 13 people had arrived. When Yang Yuyan saw the number 13 in front of her, she was slightly stunned. There are obviously only 12 people in the next copy this time. Who is the extra one? At this time, all members were in place, and a new text prompt appeared. Please ask the captains of the 2 teams to choose the camp you want to join in this instance. A. Sinner Camp. B. Sky City Camp. Note that the criminal camp is more difficult, but the rewards for clearing the level are also more generous. Captain, please think carefully and choose carefully. Liu Sheng looked at the 2 options A and B in front of him, and had no other choice but to wait. I can't help but feel a little curious. Which camp will Yang Yuyan choose? If it were him, with his cautious character, he would definitely choose the Sky City Camp. After all, the audience usually only cares about the result of a duel between 2 guilds. No one cares if your faction is harder. The 30-second countdown ended quickly, and the captains of the 2 sides finished choosing their side. Liu Sheng saw a line of text flashing in the blank sky. Congratulations on joining the criminal camp. Death in the game is a real event. I wish you good luck. Good luck. I knew it. Liu Sheng looked at the camp he belonged to and sighed. He had a hunch just now that with Yang Yuyan's character, she would definitely choose the high-risk and high-return side. The white screen in front of me was quickly replaced by black. Immediately afterwards, lines of text emerged. Welcome to the Afterlife Flower and Hibiscus Lotus copy series. Act 3, Making a Big Fuss in the Sky. After Sun Qixin made a big peach feast, Huang Shengtian was furious. The soldiers of the Tianhe Guard were ordered to immediately go to Wuji Mountain to capture Sun Qixin. The Li Jin family mistakenly let the assassin into the feast, and they cannot escape their guilt. This time, he needs to commit a crime and serve as a vanguard to go to Wuji Mountain to catch the thief. Copy rating: A+. Character identity: Sinner Warrior. Main mission update: Sifang City Survival Challenge. Sifang City has a total of 4 levels of city, and every 15 minutes, 1 level of city gate will be opened from the outside to the inside. In the end, the 2 sides will meet in the inner center, and the 2 sides have 15 minutes to fight. Among the remaining people, Which side has the most survivors will determine which side has the home field advantage in the next PK battle. Countdown to the opening of the Triple City Gate 1459. Lu Sheng slowly opened his eyes. What comes into view is a desolate abandoned city. Traces of postmodern industry remain everywhere. Fragments of neon lights and mecha body parts were scattered everywhere. Behind him is the vast sea of clouds. This is an abandoned city between the Sky City and Wuji Mountain. As the copy officially started, more and more people appeared around him. Some were wearing coarse linen clothes, and some were wearing close-fitting soft armor. Lu Sheng could recognize at a glance that the close-fitting soft armor was the standard protective uniform of the Tianhe Guards. The two parties were scattered randomly in Sifang City. The sound of laser gun fire was heard not far away. Lu Sheng quickly took out a laser pistol from the equipment slot, quickly found a bunker and hid behind it. Through the gap in the bunker, he quietly observed the situation on the road, and suddenly found that his situation was very bad. It turned out that the people who landed in this area with him were basically soldiers from the Tianhe Guards. There were only a few of our own people wearing the clothes of criminals. He was quickly surrounded by nearby guardsmen, and after a laser blast, he immediately fell to the ground. Lu Sheng's heart suddenly rose to his throat, and he saw a guard soldier looking in his direction. I just saw another criminal here. He must be hiding behind that pile of things. Let's go over and search to make sure he doesn't escape. Another tall and thin man whistled and walked towards the direction where Lu Sheng was hiding with a laser gun. HMPH, it's unlucky for these criminals to land near us. Lu Sheng watched the two people walking toward him nervously while quietly putting on the black and white impermanence summoning ring. Now that I have enough points, I must not skimp when it's time to save my life. Seeing the two escort soldiers getting closer and closer, Lu Sheng was about to summon black and white impermanence, when suddenly a bolt of lightning fell unexpectedly from the sky. The lightning was like a chain. It penetrated one person first, then quickly connected to another person, and then was transmitted to the next person next to him. The chain lightning quickly penetrated the 12 Tianhe Guard soldiers, killing them silently on the spot. The tall and thin man who was still talking and laughing suddenly found that all the Tianhe Guardsmen behind him had fallen down. He was left standing alone in front of Lu Sheng's bunker. Lu Sheng quickly gave himself the title of a strong man proficient in fighting. Rushing out from behind the bunker like a gust of wind. 3 times, 5 times and 2 times, the weapon was knocked out of the hand of the tall and thin man. Then he raised his laser pistol and pointed it at the tall and thin man's head. My luck is indeed bad, but it seems that you are even more unlucky. After finishing speaking, Lu Sheng pulled the trigger in his hand before the tall and thin man could speak. The laser beam penetrated the tall and thin man's chest, leaving a look of reluctance on his face. Lu Sheng breathed a sigh of relief and looked up at the street in the distance. He suddenly discovered that such chain lightning was not an exception. Chains of lightning one after another appeared on the streets of the city without any warning. Inadvertently, many people fell to the electric shock. What's even more frightening is that lightning can travel up to 3 to 4 meters. Maybe there is a distance of more than 10 meters between you and another person. But for no reason, through the transmission of 3 or 4 people, he was killed by lightning on the spot. Everyone was in danger for a while, and some warriors who originally planned to kill a few opponents at the beginning gave up the idea of killing them. I don't know who took the lead in shouting, "Run to the 3rd level city gate and hide inside the 3rd level city. You'll be fine." A large group of players immediately rushed towards the city gate. Chain lightning is now more convenient for killing people. They are all clusters of people. If you hit just one person, you can easily take away a dozen people. At this time someone shouted again. Everyone should not crowd, spread out as much as possible, and keep a distance of more than 4 meters from each other. Lu Sheng was wearing the mirror armor at this time. Chain lightning, as a type of light, will also be refracted by mirror armor. Therefore, among all the people, only Lu Sheng ran slowly towards the 3rd city gate with confidence. About 10 minutes later, as the triple city gate got closer and closer, there were more and more people in front of them. Many amateurs from the same camp formed teams at this moment. Lu Sheng also saw an acquaintance in the crowd. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao. But what's a little strange is that she seems to be alone at the moment and has not yet met anyone from the Shengxian Guild. After landing in the dungeon world, the members of Shungshan Guild were also scattered in every corner of Sifang City. Yang Yuyan informed everyone of the meeting place through the wireless communicator, and then rushed to the agreed-upon location outside Sanchong City. She also wears an epic A armor. Although it cannot reflect damage like Lu Sheng's mirror armor, its defensive capabilities are very good. Can withstand at least 2 electric shocks. At this moment, she was very anxious to contact Ji Yu Xiaoxiao on her personal channel. Xiaoxiao, where are you? Give me a position and I will protect you. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao quickly replied. Don't worry, Xiaoyan, Beishan and I have met. Yang Yuyan breathed a sigh of relief, but then she said. You still have to be careful about lightning, and don't get too close to each other. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao pretended to be angry and teased. We are a serious married couple, why can't we get too close, ah? Ji Yu Xiaoxiao's exclamation suddenly came from the other end of the communicator. Yang Yuyan's heart suddenly jumped and she asked hurriedly. Xiaoxiao, what's wrong with you? There was silence in the communicator for a while, until a minute later, Luo Beishan's breathing came. Team Yang, Xiaoxiao and I were both hit by lightning just now. Fortunately, the armor helped us resist once, so there's no big problem for the time being. After hearing this, Yang Yuyan suddenly became anxious. Please be safe, I'll be there soon. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao and Luo Beishan were the 2 people she trusted the most. At this time, they were struck by lightning at the same time. She was so anxious that she wished she could appear next to them immediately. Yang Yuyan ran all the way and finally saw Ji Yu Xiaoxiao and Luo Beishan sitting on the ground resting about 1 kilometer away from the 3rd city gate. Seeing that the 2 of them were okay for the time being, Yang Yuyan finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, before she finished taking this breath, she suddenly saw another person being hit by chain lightning 100 meters away. The lightning jumped all the way and was quickly transmitted to another person 4 meters in front of that person. 2 people were killed by lightning one after another, and a group of nearby players were so frightened that they immediately started running on their hands and knees towards the city gate. The rushing crowd accelerated the speed at which the chain lightning spread forward. The lightning bolt, which was clearly 100 meters away from Ji Yu Xiaoxiao and Ji Yu Xiaoxiao just now, came to them in an instant. Yang Yuyan, who was watching all this from a distance, suddenly screamed. Xiaoxiao, Beishan, be careful. But lightning comes faster than sound. Before Ji Yu Xiaoxiao and Ji Yu Xiaoxiao could react, the bolt of lightning had already jumped in front of Ji Yu Xiaoxiao and Ji Yu Xiaoxiao through the swarming crowd. One more blow, and both Ji Yu Xiaoxiao and Luo Beishan will be killed. Yang Yuyan suddenly turned pale and froze on the ground, even forgetting to run. At the critical moment, she suddenly saw a figure quickly stopping in front of Ji Yu Xiaoxiao and the other 2. After the chain lightning touched the man, it did not continue to jump forward, but refracted back very strangely. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao, who had narrowly escaped death, couldn't believe his eyes. She raised her head and looked at the person standing in front of her. She was about to say thank you when her eyes suddenly lit up. He shouted in surprise, "Fat man, you saved me." But after Ji Yu Xiaoxiao said this, he was immediately stunned. Because the Lu Sheng in front of him could no longer be called a fat man in a strict sense. After a week of hard training, Lu Sheng's weight has dropped to 160 pounds. For the 178-year-old Lu Sheng, although his weight is still a little on the heavy side, his figure has generally become more symmetrical. Not only does the feeling of potbelly disappear, but the beautiful facial features are gradually revealed. At the same time, in the live broadcast room of Shungshan Guild, the audience who had been silent just now because they were afraid that Ji Yu Xiaoxiao would be killed suddenly burst into exclamations. Barrage drifted across the TV screen like snowflakes. Oh my God, who is this person? He saved our little one. I want to remember his appearance, I almost cried just now. I want to thank his whole family. Lu Sheng looked at Ji Yu Xiaoxiao and showed a warm smile. Xiaoxiao, are you okay? Luo Beishan next to Ji Yu Xiaoxiao glanced at Lu Sheng and then at Ji Yu Xiaoxiao. He asked slightly jealously, Xiaoxiao, who is he to you? Seeing Luo Beishan's jealous look, Ji Yu Xiaoxiao immediately returned to her true self as a pervert. He deliberately grabbed Lu Sheng's arm and pressed the dangerous peak on his chest against Lu Sheng's arm. The lies come out as soon as you open your mouth. How is my childhood sweetheart? He's fat and handsome. Is he reliable? Looking at Luo Bishan's gentle face, a look of disappointment suddenly appeared in his eyes. Lu Sheng felt an inexplicable feeling of guilt in his heart. Just as he was about to open his mouth to explain, he heard a gentle and emotional voice coming from behind him. Okay, Xiao Xiao, stop teasing Beishan. Lu Sheng is not Xiao Xiao's childhood sweetheart. Yang Yuyan looked at the surprised look in Luo Beishan's eyes and said with a smile. His name is Lu Sheng, and he is the other half of my contract. There is no live sound in the live broadcast room, so the audience in front of the screen does not know what the several people are talking about. Only the commentator guessed. They seem to know each other and should be friends in real life. They are really lucky to have such friends. I really want to have a friend like this. Luo Beishan breathed a long sigh of relief after hearing that Lu Sheng was actually Yang Yuyan's significant other. He quickly stood up, smiled and shook hands with Lu Sheng. Hello, my name is Luo Beishan, and I am a member of the Xingshan Guild. Yang Yuyan then turned to look at Lu Sheng, as if meeting him for the first time, sizing him up from beginning to end. Long time no see, little dear. Lu Sheng was taken aback, looked at the smiling Yang Yuyan, and stammered. Did you recognize me? Yang Yuyan nodded seriously. The way you look now has changed so much from when we first met. Thanks to Xiao Xiao, I can recognize you. Yu Xiao Xiao, who was sitting on the ground, immediately puffed up his chest proudly. Fat man, thank me quickly. Without me, you and your wife wouldn't be able to recognize each other. Yang Yuyan's face was slightly red, she sighed softly, and then said. It's not safe here. Let's quickly go to the Triple City Gate and meet everyone. While talking, he helped Yu Xiao Xiao, and Lu Sheng also helped Luo Beishan. The four of them quickly ran towards the Triple City Gate. At this time, there are less than 3 minutes before the Triple City Gate opens. A large number of players have gathered at the city gate. In order to prevent being hit by the chain lightning, Lu Sheng and the other two stood far away. The members of Xingshan Guild are also arriving one after another. Except for a few people who lost their luck, there were no casualties. The quality of the Super Guild's personnel and the configuration of its equipment are indeed extraordinary. Yang Yuyan took this opportunity to observe the people in front of the door. Since the city gate has 2 gates, the north and the south, she did not see any members of the Angel Guild in front of the south gate. It seems that they chose to gather at the north gate. This is just right to avoid conflicts when there are a lot of amateurs. Luo Beishan glanced at the Tianhe Guard soldiers in front of the door and asked in a low voice. Captain Yang, the city gate will open in 2 minutes. Should we take this opportunity to eliminate some of the Tianhe Guards? Using our airborne tactics, we are expected to kill about 40 people in 2 minutes. Lu Sheng couldn't help but secretly gasp when he heard Luo Beishan's casual words about killing 40 people in 2 minutes. The efficiency of the Super Union is truly astonishing. Yang Yuyan thought for a moment and shook her head. There's chain lightning here, so we'd better avoid going to crowded places. We will take action after entering the next city gate. 2 minutes passed quickly. The amateurs who were waiting at the door and eager to avoid the chain lightning rushed in as soon as the city gate opened. Yang Yuyan nodded to everyone. Let's go in too. He took the lead and ran towards the city gate. Lu Sheng followed Yang Yuyan and suddenly saw Yang Yuyan handing a wireless microphone to him as he ran. You are wearing my bracelet, even if you are half a member of the Xingshan Guild. You put on this wireless communicator first. We can communicate through this. Lu Sheng took the wireless communicator and quickly put it behind his ear. The other members of the Xingshan Guild looked at him in confusion. At this time, I heard Yu Xiao Xiao laugh and curse. What are you looking at? I am the other half of Xiaoyan's contract. What's wrong with wearing a headset? The rest of the team members suddenly realized, and then more and more eyes glanced at Lu Sheng intentionally or unintentionally. Lu Sheng couldn't help but feel a chill running down his spine. He followed the Xingshan Guild's team and ran all the way into the Triple City Gate. Sure enough, it was discovered that there was no more chain lightning in Sanchong City. It seems to be a natural disaster in the city. I don't know what dangers there are in this Triple City. At this time, everyone saw a new message pop up in the message bar. Main Mission Update. Sifang City Survival Challenge. In 1 minute, the mutated beasts will begin to massacre the city, Please prepare all players to attack. The level of mutant beasts will increase over time. After 14 minutes, an epic beast will appear. All players are requested to escape from the Triple City as soon as possible before the epic mutant beast appears. Countdown to the opening of the second city gate 1459. The disaster in this heavy city is the mutated beast. Luo Beishan quickly glanced at Yang Yuyan. Yang Yuyan nodded. Except for the epic mutant beasts, we all have strategies to deal with them. This level is good for us. Let's take this opportunity and seize the time to kill the Tianhe guardsmen. Fishing net formation, action. Yang Yuyan raised her right hand and grabbed it in the air, and the 11 Shungshan Guild members behind her immediately rushed out in a well-trained manner. Like a fishing net, it suddenly scattered among the crowd. Yang Yuyan fell at the end and turned to look at Lu Sheng. You should find a place to hide first and pay attention to your own safety. After saying that, he also chased the guild members. On the streets in the distance, artillery fire soon broke out. From time to time, screams of soldiers from the Tianhe guards being killed were heard. Lu Sheng looked at the members of the Shungshan Guild who suddenly disappeared like the wind, and admired in his heart. They were indeed 100 times stronger than the Blue Elephant Guild. While climbing to a tall tower next to him, he would definitely not hide if he hid. How could he miss such a good harvest opportunity? Lu Sheng climbed to the top of a TV tower, looked at the fierce artillery fire below, and took out the blood-stepping swallow bow and critical strike air hammer from the equipment rack. Long time no see, guys. Lu Sheng muttered to himself, and then with a swish, the air hammer flew towards a residual blooded guard soldier below. Plus 2 points, plus 20,000 money. The familiar numbers appeared in front of Lu Sheng again, and Lu Sheng couldn't help feeling ecstatic. Although the items that were exploded could not be picked up for the time being, the stable points and money still fell into his pocket. The Chai Yu in Yang Yuyan's hand once again froze 10 people in place. The extremely cold breath continues to erode these frozen human ice sculptures until their blood is completely worn away. Yang Yuyan was about to add another arrow when she heard Lu Sheng's voice coming from the wireless communicator. Xiaoyan, leave these ice sculptures to me, there are good things. Yang Yuyan stopped in doubt, and saw an air hammer suddenly flying down from mid-air. It made a cute creaking sound while lightly hitting the ice sculptures. Just like the golden egg smashing activities that are often held at the entrance of furniture stores. When you hit it, a bunch of things exploded, and when you smashed it, a bunch of things exploded. Yang Yuyan stared at the equipment on the ground in shock, and asked in the communicator in surprise. Little dear, how did you do it? Lu Sheng was busy harvesting the blood remnant warriors filling the streets at this time, so he hurriedly replied. I would also like to thank you for the blood-stepping flying swallow you gave me earlier. Hey, there is an epic A-level weapon next to you. Pick it up quickly. Yang Yuyan was taken aback. Epic A-level weapons usually have a chance to be dropped by mutant beasts of high level or above. How come these ordinary guardsmen can also explode epic weapons? Wrong. To be precise, the soldiers of these escorts can actually explode equipment. With great surprise, she picked up the weapon Lu Sheng mentioned. Click on the weapon attribute details. Equipment name, Little Flying Stick with Eyes. Equipment rating, Epic A. Equipment introduction. Here comes the little flying stick. The cutie can hit the target 100% and can move on its own. It's really an epic A-level piece of equipment. Yang Yuyan put the small flying stick into the equipment slot with an expression of disbelief. I'll keep it for you first and give it to you later. No, I'll give this to you. Did you give it to me? Yang Yuyan opened her mouth in shock. Does this little dear know what he is talking about? Doesn't he know how rare an epic A weapon is, so he just gave it away? Could it be that he is actually a hidden rich man and doesn't care about this at all? But if that's the case, then why bother digging through the trash can? Yang Yuyan was puzzled for a while. However, she was not the only one who couldn't figure it out, but also the entire Shungshan Guild team members. Because Lu Sheng not only helped Yang Yuyan clean up the residual blood heads, he was also helping all Shungshan Guild members clean up their remaining bloody heads. Whenever a guard soldier was blown up by an air hammer and equipment fell to the ground, Lu Sheng would glance at it, and then sigh with regret. Hey, they're just some rare B-grade junk equipment. Many members of the Shungshan Guild looked at each other in confusion as they looked at the weapons in their hands. The expressions seemed to be asking each other, "We are the best super union, right? Rare B-grade equipment is all rubbish. What is the identity of this man? It's no wonder he became the other half of Team Young's contract." Ji Yu Xiaoxiao also picked up a piece of epic A equipment under the guidance of Lu Sheng. Just when she planned to tell Lu Sheng that she would temporarily keep it for him like Yang Yuyan, Lu Sheng's voice came from the wireless communicator. "Xiaoxiao, if you pick it up, it's yours. There's no need to give it to me." Ji Yu Xiaoxiao opened her mouth wider than Yang Yuyan. "Fat man, are you crazy? Are you going to give me epic A-level equipment on demand?" Lu Sheng was stunned for a moment by Ji Yu Xiaoxiao's scolding. Because in his eyes, an epic piece of equipment is really nothing. But he definitely couldn't chat with Ji Yu Xiaoxiao like this, so he said, "Xiaoxiao, take it. After all, you knocked out most of this warrior's blood." Ji Yu Xiaoxiao thought about it and realized that what Lu Sheng said seemed to make sense, so he put the weapon in the equipment slot without being polite. But he still couldn't help but whispered to Yang Yuyan through the communicator, "Xiaoyan, what are the family conditions of your family?" After hearing this, Yang Yuyan could only shake her head helplessly. "How could I know?" Yang Yuyan and her Shungshan Guild members quickly eliminated more than 30 enemies in less than a minute. It was actually faster than the 40 people in 2 minutes predicted by Luo Bishan just now. However, a small part of this is due to Lu Sheng. Because everyone knows that the blood at the back is often more difficult to remove. And Lu Sheng can instantly kill the opponent when their health line drops below 5%. It really saves everyone a lot of time. Lu Sheng watched as 50 points and 500,000 money were added to the attribute column. He twisted his neck in satisfaction. Although I didn't get the equipment, this way of easily gaining points would be popular with anyone. Just then, a new task prompt popped up. The 1-minute preparation time has expired. The first wave of mutant beasts is coming. Players, please be prepared. The moment she saw the mission prompt, Yang Yuyan immediately and decisively gave up chasing the convoy soldiers. He commanded calmly through the communicator, "The mutated beast is here. All team members must gather under the TV tower and form a defensive formation." The members of the Shungshan Guild, no matter where they were very disciplined and immediately stopped what they were doing. Quickly gathered around Yang Yuyan. The first wave of mutant beasts quickly emerged from the streets and alleys. It's the primary mutant beast, the blue-skinned cockroach. Lu Sheng still remembers that their weak point is on the cockroach's back. After all, the mantis back is unbearable face covering. Lu Sheng then shouted through the wireless communicator, "Xiaoyan, these are blue-skinned cockroaches. Their weak point is on their back. Let's hit that spot." Yang Yuyan looked up at Lu Sheng at the top of the tower suspiciously, and then shouted. The defense team pushed forward, and the attack team climbed up the TV tower and attacked the cockroach's back. As soon as Yang Yuyan's order came down, Luo Beishan and his defense team members quickly expanded outside and fired at the blue-skinned cockroaches indiscriminately. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao led the attack team to the second floor of the TV tower and began to shoot at the cockroach's back. Sure enough, I saw that the moment the blue-skinned cockroach was shot in the back, his whole body stiffened, and then a large amount of blood spurted out. The weak point of this cockroach is really its back. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao exclaimed in surprise. She still remembered the last time she faced the beast tide. Although she finally succeeded in repelling the blue-skinned cockroaches, the fight was very hard at that time. If you could have known the weakness of this blue-skinned cockroach before, you wouldn't have to fight it too easily. In a short time, a large number of blue-skinned cockroaches were beaten to a pulp. Lu Sheng's critical air hammer circled back and forth over the heads of these cockroaches non-stop. In less than a minute, all the blue-skinned cockroaches were wiped out. The TV screen was full of people marveling at Shungshan Guild. "Oh my god, my family, only half of the angels have been wiped out. How did Shungshan become so strong this time? It's time to shout the slogan. Predator, son-in-law Shungshan." Ji Yu Xiaoxiao looked at the completely wiped out blue-skinned cockroaches and the equipment on the ground, and couldn't help but asked in surprise. "Fat man, how do you know the weakness of blue-skinned cockroaches?" Lu Sheng replied casually without thinking. Because as the saying goes, mantis, back, is unbearable. Ha! Ji Yu Xiaoxiao was still surprised by Lu Sheng's unexpected answer. A new task prompt message popped up again. The second wave of mutant beasts is coming, players please be prepared to fight it. As the notification message disappeared, this time a group of mutant beasts that looked like wolf dogs appeared on the streets. But what is different from ordinary wolf dogs is that cold smoke is constantly blowing out from their mouths and feet. When Yang Yuyan saw the mutated beast in front of her, she immediately frowned. It's them again. We suffered a little loss here last time. My moon-chasing bow has no effect on these mutated beasts. Everyone should be more vigilant. At this moment, she seemed to suddenly remember something, and tried to ask through the wireless communicator. Xiaolu, do you know what kind of mutant beast these are? What are their weaknesses? When Lu Sheng saw these local dogs braving the cold, he immediately smiled knowingly. What a coincidence, isn't it? We are old friends again. Direwolf dog, he quickly replied on the communicator. These are called direwolf dogs. Their weakness is. I know, it's their heads. Before Lu Sheng finished speaking, a member of the Shengxian Guild shouted excitedly through the communicator. Because the dog's head saves life, their weakness is the dog's head. Lu Sheng suddenly couldn't laugh or cry. It's not all homophonic. The weakness of these direwolf dogs is not their brains, but that they are more lustful. If you like women, you can make them stop by using seductive words. Yang Yuyan and Ji Yu Xiaoxiao, the only two women in the Shengxian Guild, looked at each other. Seduction. Then Ji Yu Xiaoxiao shouted to Lu Sheng through the wireless communicator. Fatty, is this their weakness or yours? Lu Sheng couldn't explain it clearly for a while, so he could only persuade him in a good voice. Xiaoyan, Xiaoxiao, it's true, you can believe me. To be honest, if she hadn't seen Lu Sheng's miraculous performance before, Yang Yuyan would have thought Lu Sheng was crazy. But since the last dungeon, whether he accurately identified the black and white stone brick path or just mentioned the weakness of the blue-skinned cockroach, it has been shown that Lu Sheng has abilities that are different from ordinary people. Yang Yuyan's heart moved slightly. Maybe you can try what he said. But she would definitely not do such things as seduction. Naturally, this important task fell on the head of Ji Yu Xiaoxiao, a little pervert. Xiaoxiao, try what Xiaolu said. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao looked at Yang Yuyan with wide eyes. This was the first time she had seen Yang Yuyan accept such an outrageous suggestion. Xiaoyan, are you crazy? Yang Yuyan looked at the direwolf dog that was getting closer and nodded affirmatively. I'm serious, come here, little one. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao's delicate and beautiful face suddenly turned crimson. I won't. You will. Aren't you often in my room, learning those short videos to dance that can't be played? All the members of the Shengxian Guild suddenly pricked up their ears intentionally or unintentionally. This is the first time they sincerely hope that the mutant beasts in front of them can come more violently. Don't let Xiaoxiao have a way out. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao bit her back teeth and lowered her voice and said. Xiaoyan, this is a global live broadcast. Not only the mutant beasts are watching me dance, but also. Oh, I forgot. Yang Yuyan's face suddenly turned red. Then you can just move your waist, dance or something. Then he urged. Hurry up, Xiaoxiao, if you don't jump, it'll be too late. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao looked up at Lu Sheng bitterly and threatened every word. Fat man, what you said better be true, otherwise, I will have to dig your eyes out. Lu Sheng immediately shuddered. At this time, he saw Ji Yu Xiaoxiao climbing onto the platform on the second floor of the TV tower. Facing the warm summer sun, I slowly took off the protective clothing outside. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao was wearing a solid color slim stretch t-shirt. The hem of the dress was almost above the waistline, revealing her slender waist. Below are the special gray fishnet stockings. The slender legs seemed to be twice as long as the upper body. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao looks like a delicate and cute girl next door type. But his figure is so exaggerated that he looks like a devil. This extreme contrast brought huge visual impact to Lu Sheng. Not to mention, Ji Yu Xiaoxiao was still singing and dancing under the clear sky. In order to achieve the purpose of seduction, Ji Yu Xiaoxiao danced extremely enchantingly at this time. It's hard to describe in words. If I had to describe it, it would probably be like a big pendulum plus nobody. Lu Sheng suddenly heard a burst of machine gun fire coming from below. A string of 60 bullets shot into the sky. Yang Yuyan's loud scolding came from the wireless communicator. Concentrate on the mutant beast in front of you. Whose gun went off just now? At this time, in the live broadcast room, tons of fans were also not calm. Is this little baby seducing mutant beasts? Could this be useful? I don't know if it has any effect on mutant beasts, but it has worked on me anyway. Brothers, I can't type for the time being. Under the TV tower, the direwolf dogs that were about to approach Shungshan Guild suddenly stopped. Each one seemed to have transformed into a domestic dog, sitting on the ground very obediently, admiring Ji Yu Xiaoxiao's dance with fascination. Is this a mutant beast? They are tamer than my teddy. At this time, Lu Sheng's anxious urging came from the wireless communicator of the Shungshan Guild members. Just go back and watch the replay. It's important to eliminate the direwolf dogs now. The members of the Shungshan Guild just woke up from their dreams. Quickly pick up the laser gun and shoot at the dogs. Of course Lu Sheng was not idle, and once again released his critical air hammer. In less than a minute, all the direwolf dogs were beaten to the ground. With almost no effort, the attacks of the two groups of mutant beasts ended easily. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao saw that the direwolf dog had been repelled. He quickly stopped dancing and put on protective clothing with a red face. The audience in front of the TV was disappointed for a while. Why are these mutated beasts so invincible? Is it still the same group of wolf dogs? Is anyone still paying attention? It seems that only Shungshan has eliminated all the mutant beasts. Of course no one is paying attention. The soldiers of Shungshan Guild were picking up fallen equipment all over the ground. Although there are almost no epic A-level weapons, even if it is rare B equipment, so many are enough to exchange for a lot of internal points within the guild. Lu Sheng opened his properties panel with satisfaction. The attacks by the two groups of mutated beasts just now allowed him to accumulate nearly 400 ladder points and 6 million in money. My uncle's treatment expenses for a week have come up again. In the next 10 minutes, 10 more groups of mutant beasts appeared one after another. Although each batch of mutant beasts is gradually getting stronger. However, after Lu Sheng accurately found out the opponent's weaknesses, the members of the Shungshan Guild worked together to eliminate them. Lu Sheng's personal ladder points have now increased to 5,317 points. The money has soared to more than 49 million. Just when he was lying on the rooftop contentedly like a nouveau riche. A new task prompt message popped up again. The 12th wave of mutant beasts is coming. This time, the mutant beasts have evolved into super mutant beasts with corrosive abilities. Players, please be careful when dealing with them. In addition, the epic behemoth is coming soon. Please go to the second city gate as soon as possible. Countdown 159. Chapter 91. After Yang Yuyan saw the new task reminder, she immediately said to the guild members around her. Epic level mutant beasts are beyond our ability to deal with. We will set off immediately to the second city gate. The members of the Shungshan Guild immediately agreed, and Lu Sheng also climbed down from the top of the TV tower and followed everyone back toward the second gate. After just defeating more than a dozen waves of mutant beasts, everyone's attitude towards Lu Sheng was completely different. At first, everyone thought it was another person who came to gain access to the dungeon by virtue of his relationship with Yang Yuyan. But he didn't expect that he would be the one to make a fortune following him. Not to mention how he knew the weaknesses of each mutant beast, the equipment he revealed alone was enough to make all other guilds jealous. At this moment, everyone looked at Lu Sheng as if they were looking at a moving treasure chest. It is very different from how I looked at Liang Chu and his ilk before. Luo Beishan came to Lu Sheng's side, patted him on the shoulder and said, Xiao Lu, you are really powerful. Without you, we would not have been able to defeat the 11 groups of mutant beasts so easily. Have you joined a guild now? Lu Sheng shook his head. I'm on my own now. Luo Beishan's face immediately showed a happy smile, and he quickly said, Xiao Lu, don't you consider joining our Shungshan Guild? Lu Sheng is used to fighting alone. But I was too embarrassed to issue a good person card to Shungshan Guild in front of Yang Yuyan. So I found a high-sounding reason and said, to join your guild, you need at least 10,000 points. My current points are still far behind. Upon hearing this, Luo Beishan thought there was something going on, and quickly patted his chest and said, It's okay. Our Yang Real Estate Guild has an echelon of construction. You can go to our grade a guild saints first, and when you have enough points, then. Before Luo Beishan finished speaking, Jiyu Xiaoxiao had already slapped him on the back of his head. I am Xiaoyan's contract husband, do you need to worry about me? Luo Beishan said. Oh, while touching the back of his head, he smiled coquettishly. Yes, yes. At this time, Yang Yuyan, who was walking at the front, suddenly made a warning gesture. Everyone, be careful, the mutated beast is coming. As soon as he finished speaking, many black shadows appeared slowly squirming in the abandoned city lanes. The air was suddenly filled with the smell of burnt metal being corroded. It makes people feel nauseous. The heavy clouds gradually dispersed, and the midday sun illuminated the corners of the city through the dust in the sky. Lu Sheng and others finally saw what these mutated beasts looked like. To be precise, they have no appearance. It's like a lump of unknown creatures made of syrup or mud. Some are thin and long, up to 3 or 4 meters high. Some were short and fat, wider than 2 cars parked side by side. These mutated beasts were slowly walking towards the players while bubbles were rising all over their bodies. Some players who were close immediately raised their laser guns and fired at these mutant beasts. However, the laser beam had no effect on them. It's like clear water shot into the swamp, unable to make any waves. Instead, these mutated beasts dug out lumps of mud from their bodies like picking their noses and threw them at the players in front of them. Many players were unable to dodge and were swallowed whole by the mud, instantly turning into a pool of pus and blood. Then the mud mixed with pus and blood crawled back into their bodies. Make them even bigger, Luo Beishan said with a solemn expression. This super mutant beast is so corrosive. Ordinary weapons can't harm it. Xiaolu, what do you think? Lu Sheng squinted and looked at the titles on the heads of the mutant beasts. A cutie from a septic tank. Question mark, question mark, question mark. The moment Lu Sheng saw the title, he was stunned. How cute is this thing? Yang Yuyan asked anxiously from the side. Xiaolu, what are these mutant beasts called? They are called little. Lu Sheng hesitated to speak. If these 3 words, little cutie, come out of his mouth, others will definitely think that he is crazy. Yang Yuyan looked at Lu Sheng in surprise. Are they called Xiaoxiao? Jiyu Xiaoxiao on the other side immediately became furious. Fat man, can you say that again? Lu Sheng instinctively shrank his neck, and then clicked on the title attribute of Little Cutie. Title entry. Little Cutie. Attribute details. Super Mutant Beast. It comes from a series of dirty places such as septic tanks and methane tanks. It is highly corrosive and immune to all physical attacks. He has the IQ level of a 3-year-old child and likes everything dogs like. The reason why she is called Little Cutie is because she is still a child. Hug. Lu Sheng suddenly felt a chill all over his body and said quickly. These mutated beasts are immune to all physical attacks. Their weakness is that they like to play all the games that dogs like. Yang Yuyan frowned. Immunity to all physical attacks is a problem for us. There is currently less than 2 minutes before the second city gate opens. We'd better find a way to avoid their attacks and then take the opportunity to sneak into the second city. Jiyu Xiaoxiao looked at every street in front of him that was crowded with mutant beasts, and asked worriedly. Xiaoyan, every road leading to the city gate is blocked by these mutant beasts. How are we going to rush out? Lu Sheng repeatedly reviewed the attribute details of Little Cutie in his mind. Suddenly an idea came to my mind. Xiaoyan, you can use that little flying stick you just got. Yang Yuyan immediately understood what Lu Sheng meant. If these mutant beasts really like all the games that dogs like, then they will not be able to resist the temptation of a stick flying in the air. She quickly took out the Epic A equipment little flying stick with eyes from the equipment slot. He squinted his eyes and stared at the street in front of him for a long time, and then with a quick shot, he shot out the little flying stick. Everyone saw the small flying stick flying towards a huge mutant beast like a sharp arrow. Just when it was about to hit the mutated beast, it suddenly fell away and flew in another direction. Immediately afterwards, the flying stick continued to change directions in midair as if dancing, successfully attracting the attention of a group of mutant beasts. Lu Sheng couldn't help but asked in surprise. What target did you aim that little flying stick at? Yang Yuyan replied in a calm voice. Fly. Then he suddenly rushed out from Lu Sheng. Follow closely, let's take this opportunity to cross the road in front of us. The moment Yang Yuyan rushed out, the 11 members of the Shengxian Guild followed her behind her in perfect agreement. Lu Sheng hesitated for a moment and then hurriedly chased after him. At this time, the 7 or 8 mutant beasts on the road in front of him were all surrounding the little flying stick, trying to catch it. Yang Yuyan nervously watched the movements of the small flying stick above her head while carefully walking through the mud on the ground. These muds are very corrosive and will corrode everything they touch if you are not careful. After walking so hard for a distance of about 500 meters, the second gate of the city tower finally appeared in front of us. Everyone was about to breathe a sigh of relief when suddenly a cannon flew from midair and exploded around the small flying stick, burning all the flies flying in the sky to ashes. The little flying stick that lost its target quickly flew back to Yang Yuyan. And those mutated beasts also followed closely behind Xiao Figuan and rushed towards the people of Shengxian Guild. The sudden change shocked Yang Yuyan and others. They hurriedly looked in the direction from which the artillery was flying, and saw that the person firing the artillery was a soldier from the Tianhe Guards. He had a slender face and a crew cut, and looked at his group of people with a gloomy expression. But unlike ordinary guardsmen, he also wore an armband with an angel pattern on his arm. He's from the Angel Guild. Yang Yuyan really didn't expect to meet the members of the Angel Guild here. Subconsciously, she always thought that they were all at the city gate on the other side, so she unknowingly relaxed her vigilance. The little crew chief who succeeded in one blow smiled brightly. Objectively speaking, the timing of his flying stick was very precise. It happened to be halfway through the Shengxian Guild. At this time, there are mutant beasts intercepting both sides. If you are not careful, the mud thrown by the cuties will turn into pus and blood. Xiaoping too seemed to have seen the dawn of victory. Now that there is no target, your little flying stick may have no use. I originally thought that the duel between us would last until the last moment, but I didn't expect that your Shengxian Guild would be so weak. The winter has just begun. My performance this time can be seen by the whole internet. I'm afraid I will become famous in one battle. Little Flathead's words sounded very reasonable at first, but he had forgotten that if the flies were gone, wouldn't he become a target? Yang Yuyan calmly took out the small flying stick from the equipment slot again. Then he slowly shot out towards the little flat head. Xiao Fei Guan chased Xiao Ping Tu at a speed similar to that of an ordinary person running. As for the group of mutant beasts, the little cuties, when they saw Xiao Fei Guan appearing, they immediately couldn't suppress their inner impulses and turned around to chase after Xiao Fei Guan. The little flathead was immediately dumbfounded. He never expected that he would become the target of the mutant beasts. Cursing loudly in his mouth, he turned around and ran back the way he came. He kept turning back and forth along the way, trying to get rid of the little flying stick, but he didn't expect that the little flying stick seemed to be equipped with a positioning system and always followed him. I don't know if this can be considered a blessing in disguise. The sudden appearance of this Angel Guild member took away many mutant beasts. Thus, a smooth path was cleared in front of everyone in Lu Sheng. Those ordinary criminal soldiers who were originally trapped on the other side of the road and were helpless finally saw the light. Everyone hurriedly ran towards the second-level city gate. In a short time, dozens of criminal soldiers ran past the Shengxian Guild members. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao smiled and said, "The number of criminal soldiers here far exceeds the number of Tianhe Guard soldiers, which will be very beneficial to us in the next levels." Yang Yuyan looked at the criminals in front of her and nodded thoughtfully. Lu Sheng clicked on the task window and took a look at the countdown in the taskbar. 049. He breathed a sigh of relief. The third level of disaster in the city was passed without any danger. At this moment, Ji Yu Xiaoxiao shouted from beside him. "Who are you?" Lu Sheng quickly raised his head and looked in Ji Yu Xiaoxiao's direction. Suddenly, a criminal soldier beside Ji Yu Xiaoxiao took out a blue glass ball from his arms and threw it towards Yang Yuyan. Yang Yuyan was caught off guard and didn't know that the glass ball was approaching her. In desperation, Lu Sheng pushed Yang Yuyan away, but the blue glass ball suddenly exploded in the air. In the blink of an eye, a hard ice chain formed under Lu Sheng's feet, making him unable to move. The Shengxian Guild warriors who reacted quickly pointed their guns at the criminal. But he saw that the guilty man took off his coat without fear. Behind him, there was also a group of criminals pointing guns at the people of the Xiangshan Guild. Lin Yang Yuyan stared at the leading criminal, as if waking up from a dream. So you have been following us disguised as sinners. Lin Yang raised his gold-rimmed glasses and looked at Yang Yuyan with a smile. My fiancé, why are you so careless? You are so happy killing mutant beasts and you forget about us. In fact, Yang Yuyan had already had suspicions when Ji Yu Xiaoxiao mentioned that the number of criminal soldiers far exceeded those of the Tianhe guards. But he didn't expect that the Angel Guild would actually mingle among the sinners. Lin Yang glanced at the frozen Lu Sheng and spat on the ground. Bah, it's really unlucky. Why did you end up with someone from a research institute? Yang Yuyan didn't understand why Lin Yang suddenly mentioned the institute, but it was not an issue she wanted to care about at the moment. She glanced at Lu Sheng, frowned and asked, "What did you do to him?" Lin Yang shrugged. This was originally a small gift for you, but it's a pity. It's not something fatal, it's just a freezing spell. It won't hurt your muscles and bones, it just blocks the equipment and props columns, and then you'll be frozen on the ground for 5 minutes. As Lin Yang spoke, he habitually took off his glasses, breathed a sigh of relief, and then wiped them with the sleeves of the people around him. It's okay to freeze for 5 minutes, but unfortunately, in less than a minute, the epic mutant beast is coming. I don't know if your friends in this seminar will be able to persevere when the time comes. Yang Yuyan's face suddenly turned pale. Everyone present knew that epic mutant beasts were not something that ordinary people could contend with just by relying on their strength. It would take at least an epic-level mecha to repel it. Lu Sheng was blocked by 2 columns and was frozen in place, unable to move, which was tantamount to killing him. Yang Yuyan knew what Lin Yang was thinking without asking. Are you going to use this to threaten me? Lin Yang smiled and clapped his hands. Xiaoyan is indeed as smart as ice and snow. My request is also very simple. I will surrender to the Angel Guild in front of everyone, and then get married to me next week. We will forget our grudges with a smile. I will give you the unfreezing talisman. Yang Yuyan glanced at Lu Sheng behind her with a complicated expression, then turned to look at the proud Lin Yang. The guild's honor is more important than anything else. No matter if it's him, me, or Xiao Xiao who is frozen at this moment, we will never give in to you. So Lin Yang, you'd better give up on this idea as soon as possible. Yang Yuyan's tone was calm, but her words were sonorous and powerful. And let me tell you, the battle between super guilds is never won by sneak attacks. I didn't discover your conspiracy. It's true that I was careless. But if you think you can defeat us this way, you are looking down on our Xiangshan Guild. Lu Sheng looked at Yang Yuyan's profile and sighed softly in his heart, but he could completely understand Yang Yuyan's decision. This has nothing to do with whether he can save her or not, this has to do with the honor of the guild. Lu Sheng believed that even if Yang Yuyan herself was hit by the freezing curse, she would not give in. Lin Yang still looked at Yang Yuyan with a smile. Well, it's to be expected. If you give in to me to save him, I'll feel uncomfortable. Okay. Since I can win once, I can win a second time. As for now, I'll leave it to the mutant beasts to teach you a lesson. After Lin Yang finished speaking, he immediately retreated behind the Angel Guild members. Under the escort of a group of people, he quickly retreated to the second city gate. After Yang Yuyan waited for everyone from the Angel Guild to go away, she turned to look at Lu Sheng and said apologetically. Sorry, it just had to do with the guild's honor, so I had to make this choice. But then it's my personal decision. I will stay and accompany you to fight against the epic mutant beasts. Yang Yuyan's words shocked Lu Sheng, and he quickly said. You are the captain of Xiangshan Guild, you don't have to. Yang Yuyan didn't wait for Lu Sheng to finish speaking, looked into his eyes seriously and said. You saved me last time in the dungeon, and it's me this time. Yang Yuyan's words surprised all the members of the Xiangshan Guild. Luo Beishan immediately said anxiously. Captain Yang, you are our captain, we must not have any accidents. You take everyone into the second level, and I'll protect the deer here. Yang Yuyan shook her head firmly. The little deer was hit by the Angel Guild's freezing spell just now because he was trying to protect me. And in the last copy, he saved my life several times in danger. For both reasons and feelings, I will stay and face it with him. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao knew Yang Yuyan's temper very well. She did not persuade Yang Yuyan to leave, but said, I will also stay with you. One more person will give you a better chance of survival. Luo Bishan immediately said, then I'll stay with you too. Although Lu Sheng understood that the two of them were willing to stay, it had nothing to do with him. But in this almost certain death situation, there were still people willing to stay with him, which still moved him inexplicably. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Yang Yuyan say decisively, Nonsense, do you remember what I just said? We can't let others underestimate our Xingshan Guild. After passing this important city, there are still many checkpoints behind us. You are the main backbone of Xingshan Guild, there is no need to spend time here. Remember, the honor of the guild is greater than anything else. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao's eyes were filled with tears. Two ordinary people faced an epic mutant beast head-on. One of them was blocked by two columns, so there was no chance of survival. The last words Yang Yuyan just said to herself. Guild honor is more important than anything else. Maybe it was the last words that my best friend said to me in this life. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao wanted to say something more, when new mission information popped up in everyone's notification bar again. There are still 15 seconds left before the arrival of the epic mutant beasts. All players are requested to evacuate Sanjiang City quickly. Countdown to the opening of the second city gate is 10, 9, 8. Yang Yuyan no longer hesitated and said in a commanding tone. In the name of Captain, I order you to leave as soon as possible. In the subsequent duel, you are not allowed to lose to the Angel Guild. Do you understand? All the members of Xingshan Guild nodded towards Yang Yuyan with tears in their eyes. Then he walked back towards the second-level city gate 3 times a step. In the live broadcast room, the barrage suddenly became crazy. Is the goddess going to stay with this man? No, why? If you stay, you will die. Woo-woo. Although I know this man saved her, I hope the goddess can survive. Jasper Beauty, charming in the prosperous age, loved for life, connected by salt and heart. As Yang Yuyan's support slogans were repeated over and over again in the live broadcast room, the countdown also came to an end. 3, 2, 1, 0. As the countdown ended, red clouds suddenly filled the sky. The huge 3-layered city was suddenly covered with a layer of scarlet. At the junction of the sky and the city in the distance, thunder and lightning suddenly broke out. Along with lightning and thunder, a huge shadow stood up from the ground. That's right, it's a shadow. The shadow was 5 stories high, its body was dark, and its eyes were red. As if there was an entity, he slowly strode towards the second-level city gate. When it passed by those mutant beasts, the shadows of the mutant beasts actually came to life. These shadows quickly wrapped around their original owners, and then cut off their heads with lightning speed. This epic mutant beast actually used the shadow to kill their master. Unable to fight back and extremely difficult to hide, Yang Yuyan asked softly, Xiao Lu, do you know the weakness of this mutant beast? Lu Sheng raised his head and looked at the shadow, and a huge title appeared in the air. A shadow demon without emotion. Lu Sheng reached out and clicked on the title entry, Shadow Demon. Title entry, Shadow Demon. Attribute details. Epic level mutant beast, immune to all physical attacks. When the target enters a distance of 5 meters nearby, it can resurrect the opponent's shadow for you to drive. Don't think that if you hide inside, you won't have a shadow, it will blow off your roof. Lu Sheng looked at the attribute details and sighed. It has no weaknesses and is immune to all physical attacks. As long as it is within 5 meters of the target, it can resurrect the opponent's shadow. Unless you run fast enough. Lu Sheng looked down at his feet, frowned and said, I can't escape. Please leave quickly. There is no need to die here with me. Yang Yuyan still shook her head firmly. Needless to say, if you die, I won't be able to complete today's weekly task, and I will die as well. I'm not doing it for you, I'm doing it for myself. Lu Sheng was stunned. He had not thought about the weekly tasks before, so he quickly said, Then you hurry up and complete your task now, and then find someone to get the marriage certificate tomorrow. Yang Yuyan's face suddenly turned red. You think beautifully. Yang Yuyan ignored Lu Sheng, but stared in the direction of Shadow Demon and said to herself, There will always be a way. She took out a dark golden dagger from the equipment slot. This magic breaking blade can cut invisible objects. I want to give it a try. Lu Sheng couldn't help but be moved. It is simply impossible to stop an epic mutant beast with a magic-breaking blade. Yang Yuyan did not do it to complete her personal mission, but to protect herself with the determination to die. At this time, Shadow Demon was getting closer and closer to the second city. It casually revived the shadow of a 3-story abandoned building next to it and threw it towards the city gate. The shadow of the abandoned building was like a sharp blade, piercing into the city wall. Suddenly, countless pieces of gravel exploded. It was like rain of rocks pouring down from the sky. Yang Yuyan took out a steel umbrella from the equipment rack and covered Lu Sheng's head, so that the gravel was not shot through the head. The reflection of the steel umbrella quickly attracted Shadow Demon's attention. At this time, there were almost no visible living creatures around Lu Sheng. Shadow Demon took a long stride and rushed towards the two of them. As he walked, he picked up the shadow fragments of the abandoned building from the ground beside him and threw them towards Lu Sheng and the others. The steel umbrella in Yang Yuyan's hand is also a treasure above the epic level. Even the invisible shadow fragments were actually stopped. It's just that she can stop the shadow fragments, but she can't stop the Shadow Demon from approaching the two of them. Cold sweat broke out in the palm of Yang Yuyan's hand holding the demon-breaking blade. To be honest, she really didn't have the confidence to use a small dagger to shake the Shadow Demon. Lu Sheng also looked ashen. Even though he had hundreds of ways to do it, now that he was blocked in 2 columns, there was nothing he could do. Is it really necessary to explain it here? Just when he was feeling disheartened, he suddenly heard a familiar roar. My heart is cold and my heart is flying, lay by. Lu Sheng looked up in shock and looked in the direction of the sound. Under the red sun, he saw a 1.9-meter tall man standing with his back to him. Carrying a huge laser cannon on his shoulder, he looked up at Shadow Demon majestically, as if a god descended from heaven. Zhu Jojo, Lu Sheng shouted in surprise, and Zhu Jojo cursed angrily at the same time. The laser cannon doesn't work. Zhu Jojo casually greeted Lu Sheng. Then he looked at the Shadow Demon in front of him with a face full of disbelief. Why isn't it afraid of laser cannon attacks? Lu Sheng then said. Because he is immune to all physical attacks. Zhu Jojo suddenly froze on the spot and shouted in his heart. How sloppy. Although Zhu Jojo's laser cannon failed to cause damage to Shadow Demon, it successfully attracted Shadow Demon's attention. At this time, the orange title slowly appeared above Zhu Jojo's head. A young man born with a monster-absorbing physique. The moment Shadow Demon saw Zhu Jojo, he immediately went crazy and started running towards him. Zhu Jojo was dumbfounded again. We didn't even hit it, so why is this mutated beast still so energetic? What should I do? Idiot, of course you run away. At this time, a petite girl suddenly ran out from behind Zhu Jojo, grabbed Zhu Jojo's hand, and ran in the other direction of Sanchong City. Above her head, there is a bright title. A distraught King Kong Barbie. Linglong, are you here too? Lu Sheng didn't know whether to be surprised or surprised. Anyway, Linglong couldn't care less about saying hello to him at the moment. He took Zhu Jojo's hand and ran as fast as he could in Sanchong City. Shadow Demon immediately abandoned the 2 Lu Sheng who were right in front of him, not even bothering to look at them. He changed his direction and strode after Zhu Jojo and the others with full concentration. Yang Yuyan was simply stunned. She stared at Shadow Demon's leaving figure with her mouth open, and asked in disbelief. What's happening here? This situation was difficult to explain clearly for a while. Lu Sheng scratched his head and had to say. Every time Lao Zhu appears, we become trash in the eyes of the mutant beasts. They only love Lao Zhu. After speaking, he quickly shouted anxiously towards Zhu Jojo's back. Lao Zhu, you must not let the Shadow Demon come within 5 meters of you, otherwise it will awaken your shadow. The sudden escape from desperate situations made the audience in the live broadcast room think that they were hallucinating. After a long time, someone carefully sent the barrage. The goddess is saved. Only then did everyone watching the live broadcast react and immediately cheered in front of the screen. Really saved. Really saved. Oh my god, who was that person just now? Why did the mutated beast run away after him? I have read the leaked posts before. Could he be the Lone Ranger? What was very different from the heartfelt joy of everyone in front of the TV was that Zhu Jojo was feeling extremely miserable at the moment. Why did he suddenly start chasing me after everything was fine? And he could only run away, unable to fight back. This is simply unreasonable. The shadow demon chasing behind the two kept picking up the shadow of the abandoned building beside him and throwing it at Zhu Jojo. Linglong immediately slowed down and fell behind Zhu Jojo. With a squeak in his mouth, he took out a green gold whip from the equipment slot and swung it out at the oncoming shadow. The long whip danced tightly behind Zhu Jojo, tearing the shadows into pieces in a short time. Shadow Demon saw that all the shadows he threw were destroyed by Linglong, and he suddenly became furious. Suddenly he increased his speed and tried his best to catch up. The distance between Shadow Demon and Zhu Jojo quickly shortened at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a short time, he had caught up with Zhu Jojo. At this moment, the shadow under Zhu Jojo seemed to suddenly come to life. It started to climb up along his trousers. Zhu Jojo's shadow has been awakened. Linglong suddenly felt anxious. Although the dragon whip in her hand could crush the shadow, she could do nothing about the shadow that was wrapped around Zhu Jojo. You can't tear Brother Zhu into pieces too. In the blink of an eye, the shadow had crawled in front of Zhu Jojo. She grabbed his neck and started to twist it hard on both sides. The power of the shadow is about 5 times that of the main body. Under normal circumstances, it can easily twist off the head of the main body. But here in Zhu Jojo, there seems to be some trouble. No matter how hard Shadow tried, Zhu Jojo's head just couldn't fall off. Shadow was so anxious that he used his hands and feet to tear at both sides. Zhu Jojo screamed in pain. Are you using my head as a cork? Linglong watched Zhu Jojo being pulled by the shadow while running, feeling anxious and painful in her heart. At this moment, she heard a woman shouting from behind. Little girl, please continue with this. Linglong turned her head and saw Yang Yuyan throwing a dagger over. She hurriedly reached out to take the demon breaking blade, and then jumped onto Zhu Jojo's back without saying a word. Zhu Jojo almost staggered forward and cursed. Why are you here too? Linglong said. Boo. Brother Zhu, stop talking. I'll pick him off for you. The demon breaking blade pointed at Zhu Jojo's body. Although he didn't use any force, he accurately pierced the shadow. Linglong then quickly drew on Zhu Jojo and said. First cross out an arm, then cross out a thigh. In a short time, Zhu Jojo's shadow was torn into pieces by Linglong. He can no longer pose a threat to Zhu Jojo. Linglong then jumped off Zhu Jojo's back and let out a long sigh of relief. The shadow demon behind him also slowed down after a rapid acceleration. There was a distance of more than 10 meters between the two sides again. At this time, Lu Sheng in front of the second-level city gate finally unlocked the ice spell. The moment the equipment and prop shelves were restored, Lu Sheng immediately took out his broken horse Zhongfei sniper and climbed towards an abandoned building next to him. No matter who the opponent is, one shot is 10% of full health. Even if you are a shadow demon, it's just a matter of 10 shots. Lu Sheng stood on the roof of the abandoned building and shouted to Zhu Jojo below. Lao Zhu, if you hold on a little longer, I will destroy it immediately. After saying that, he immediately raised his gun and aimed at the menacing shadow demon. In the scope, the words 5,000 points appeared next to Shadow Demon. Lu Sheng frowned, silently put away his broken horse, Zhongfei sniper, and shouted to Zhu Jojo again. Lao Zhu, please pick up this fatigue hard drive. I'll wait for you in front of the second city gate on the south side in a while. About 5 minutes later, Zhu Jojo finally appeared on the street in the distance. In order to escape easily, Zhu Jojo held the fatigue hard drive in his hand and Linglong on his back, running towards Lu Sheng without slowing down at all. At this time, the second-level city gate was already wide open, and Lu Sheng stood in front of the city gate and waved to them repeatedly. Shadow Demon's huge body was still chasing after them relentlessly. It seems that it also understands that once Zhu Jojo and others enter the second-level city gate, it will never be able to get Zhu Jojo again. So it quickened its pace again. The distance between the two sides was rapidly closing at a speed visible to the naked eye. 15 meters, 13 meters, 10 meters, 7 meters. Lu Sheng and Yang Yuyan's hearts suddenly rose to their throats. His hands were covered with sweat, and he stared at Zhu Jojo nervously. The camera in the live broadcast room no longer switches to the perspective of other team members at this moment, but floats quietly in the air, live broadcasting Zhu Jojo's final sprint. 6 meters, 5 meters. The tens of millions of viewers in the live broadcast room all held their breath, clenched their fists, and silently cheered for Zhu Jojo. Finally, at the last moment when Shadow Demon was about to catch up, Zhu Jojo swooped forward, hugged Lu Sheng, and crashed into the second-level city gate. Bang! There was a loud noise outside the city gate. Shadow Demon slammed into the city gate and was blocked by the invisible barrier. Zhu Jojo lay on the ground, looking at the crazy Shadow Demon outside the city gate with lingering fear, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. The exquisite and well-behaved duck sat in front of Lu Sheng and smiled at him. I just didn't have time to say hello. Long time no see, Xiao Lu. Lu Sheng also quickly smiled and waved to her. At this moment, Linglong turned to look at Yang Yuyan and said seriously. Did you just call me little girl? I'm telling you, I'm the same age as you. Yang Yuyan was stunned for a moment and nodded subconsciously. Then he turned around and looked into the second-level city, and suddenly asked doubtfully. Do you think it's a little too quiet here? After Yang Yuyan's reminder, Lu Sheng and others gradually came to their senses. Compared with the hustle and bustle of Sanchong City, Orchong City is indeed a bit too quiet. It was so quiet that there wasn't even a sound of something falling. It was as if everything in the city was still. What about the players who have just come in? Where are the members of Shungshan Guild? Yang Yuyan quickly asked through the wireless communicator. Xiao Xiao, Beishan, where are you? However, there was dead silence in the wireless communicator, and there was no sound. Lu Sheng frowned and looked at Yang Yuyan. There seems to be signal blocking here. Yang Yuyan nodded slightly, then turned to look at Zhu Jojo. Are you Zhu Jojo? Zhu Jojo was inexplicably named by a beautiful woman, and he was immediately at a loss. With stars in his eyes, he nodded repeatedly. It's me, it's me. Then he looked at Lu Sheng and said, Xiao Lu, please introduce it to me. Lu Sheng then pointed at Yang Yuyan and said, she is Yang Yuyan, the captain of Shungshan Guild and the other half of my contract. Then he pointed at Linglong and Zhu Jojo and introduced to Yang Yuyan. Xiaoyan, they are amateur teammates I met in the last dungeon. Zhu Jojo, Linglong. Yang Yuyan greeted Linglong and turned her attention to Zhu Jojo again. Are you the loner? Zhu Jojo was stunned for a moment, then waved his hand. I'm not. You got the wrong person. Yang Yuyan frowned slightly. Judging from the information collected by the elder brother and Zhu Jojo's performance just now, he should be the Lone Ranger. Maybe he doesn't want to admit it. Yang Yuyan then said. Since we are all friends, let's add each other's contact information first. Lu Sheng recalled the previous painful experience and quickly echoed. That's right, so as not to be like last time and lose contact after the copy is released. After Lu Sheng and the four of them added each other's contact information, they cautiously stepped into Erzong City. Similar to the outside, this place still looks like an industrial ruin. But the difference is that although everything here is dilapidated, it is generally in good shape. The four of them walked along one of the streets towards the first-level city gate. At this time, the countdown in the taskbar shows that the last city gate will be opened in 12 minutes. But the strange thing is that this time the taskbar did not prompt any disaster-related information. This made Lu Sheng a little confused. What exactly will be the disaster in this important city? At this moment, Linglong suddenly screamed. Look, there's a guy there. Lu Sheng and others quickly looked in the direction of Linglong's finger. I saw a person sitting on his back under an abandoned pergola. The man neither turned to say hello nor stood up. Just looking up at the sky, motionless. Lu Sheng looked intently at the title on the man's head. A dead man with exhausted vitality. Unexpectedly, he was shocked and said in a deep voice. That man is dead. Linglong said, yeah, and hurriedly hid behind Zhu Jojo. Yang Yuyan held the laser pistol in her hand and walked carefully towards the pergola. 4 people came to this man. I saw that this man's face did not show any pain, and there were no wounds on his body. The eyes and mouth are slightly open, and a pair of eyeballs are gray-white. Yang Yuyan frowned, pointed to the badge on the man's arm and said. He is from the Angel Guild. Lu Sheng's heart immediately sank. What kind of disaster could make the members of the Angel Guild die so peacefully? Then I thought, since the people from the Angel Guild will be killed, what about the people from the Shungshan Guild? Yang Yuyan obviously thought of this too. Her face was suddenly filled with sadness. Let's hurry up and walk towards the first level city gate. They always have to meet at the city gate. Lu Sheng nodded slightly and was about to walk towards the city gate. Suddenly I saw one name after another emerging from an abandoned shop next to the pergola. An unknown dead person. A dead man who cannot rest in peace. A silent dead man, Lu Sheng quickly shouted. Get your weapons quickly. Yang Yuyan and others didn't know why, but they took out their self-defense equipment immediately. Lu Sheng took a deep breath, pointed to the abandoned shop next to him and said. A lot of people died inside. Zhu Jojo frowned immediately and quickly looked around. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, he asked in a low voice. Want to go in and have a look? Lu Sheng carefully walked to the door of the shop, stood on his feet and looked inside for a moment. Lao Zhu, as long as you are willing to go in first, I have no problem. Zhu Jojo looked bitter. My love is already very bumpy, can't life be smoother? But after thinking about it, he took the lead and stepped into the abandoned shop. It's a general hardware store. The scene inside the store is not scary. There were discarded hardware accessories all over the floor, and 7 or 8 dead people lying quietly on the ground. There was no pain on everyone's face and no wounds on their bodies. The eyes are gray-white, as if their lives have been taken away by time, but their bodies are left here. There are 8 corpses in total. 2 criminal warriors, 2 Tianhe Guards warriors and 4 members of the Angel Guild. 4 members of the Angel Guild. Yang Yuyan took a breath. All Super Guild members have gone through very severe life and death tests. What on earth could make them die so quietly? No one can answer Yang Yuyan's question. A thick cloud enveloped the minds of Lu Sheng and the others. Compared with known death threats, unknown dangers are often more frightening and unsettling. There was a cold breeze blowing in the air. Zhu Jojo wiped the cold sweat from his head, took a breath and said. Let's leave quickly, we'll be too scared to stay here. Yang Yuyan nodded, took one last look at the body on the ground, and then planned to turn around and leave. At this moment, she suddenly stared in the direction of one of the corpses and exclaimed. Look, what is that? Lu Sheng and the others quickly looked in the direction of Yang Yuyan's gaze, and saw a dead body in the corner with a line of small words in front of its fingers. Be careful. A chill suddenly rose in Lu Sheng's heart, and Linglong's trembling voice came to his ears. Just now, was there a gust of cold wind blowing? Lu Sheng's heart skipped a beat when he saw that Yang Yuyan had already dragged Linglong and rushed out of the hardware store with a swish. Let's get out of here. Lu Sheng and Zhu Jojo didn't hesitate at all, followed closely behind them, and ran out of the store. The 4 people fled desperately on the deserted road. After running for less than a kilometer, Zhu Jojo finally couldn't run anymore and gasped for breath and said. They probably haven't caught up. Let's take a break. Yang Yuyan stopped and glanced at Shilu with lingering fear. Didn't you really catch up? The road was still quiet, and there was no wind moving in the air. Only occasionally does a gray little mouse cross the road. Everything was still calm as usual. The 4 of them finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, a black shadow suddenly jumped out from the alley beside them, grabbed Yang Yuyan's hand and dragged her into the alley. Lu Sheng was shocked and rushed in with a laser gun. He snatched Yang Yuyan away in front of him. What's the point? Zhu Jojo and Linglong on the side also quickly followed behind him. The dark figure that got into the alley suddenly let go of Yang Yuyan's hand and looked up at Lu Sheng and the others. The moment he saw the black shadow's face clearly, Lu Sheng exclaimed. Luobei Mountain. Luo Beishan quickly put his hand in front of his mouth and made silent gestures. Shish, because there are monsters, I secretly brought you in. Yang Yuyan was surprised and happy, and asked in a low voice. Beishan, is everyone okay? The moment Luo Beishan saw Yang Yuyan, his face showed incredible joy. But such joy was quickly replaced by sadness. The madman has been unconscious, and the situation is not good. After hearing this, Yang Yuyan felt anxious. Take me to see him quickly. Luo Beishan nodded and hurriedly led the way. Although he walked very fast, his steps were very careful, as if he was afraid of making any noise. Yang Yuyan followed behind and asked curiously, Beishan, why are you so afraid of making noise? Luo Bishan stopped, looked around cautiously, and replied in a very small voice. We found a room full of dead people, and there was a small warning message inside. He will follow the sound. Sound? Yang Yuyan frowned and asked. What is that monster? Have no idea. Luo Bishan shook his head in distress. We tried many methods, but we couldn't find out what it was. The madman suddenly fainted during the investigation. Listening to Luo Bishan's words, Lu Sheng's thoughts raced rapidly. You have to be careful, but it will follow the sound, and it can kill the members of the Angel Guild silently. This thing is too scary. Could it be a bug? At this time, Luo Bishan pointed to an abandoned courtyard in front of him and said. Because the madman is unconscious, we have to hide there temporarily, hoping to wait until the time is up before heading to the first-level city gate together. Yang Yuyan nodded slightly, took 2 quick steps, and opened the door of the small courtyard. All the Shengxian Guild soldiers in the small courtyard stood up in surprise when they saw Yang Yuyan appear. They never expected that Yang Yuyan could actually come back alive from the attack of the epic mutant beast. The originally dull atmosphere in the small courtyard suddenly relaxed a lot. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao happily stepped forward and gave Yang Yuyan a big hug. But happy as hell, no one among the dozen Shengxian Guild members dared to speak loudly. Yang Yuyan soon saw the madman unconscious on the ground. She walked forward quickly and opened his eyelids. The sight in front of her made her scream in surprise. The madman's eyes were rapidly turning white at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yang Yuyan was anxious, looked at Lu Sheng for help, and asked hopefully. Xiao Lu, can you see what's wrong? Lu Sheng knelt down and looked over the madman's head. I saw the title above the lunatic's head. A warrior who is losing his vitality. He clicked on the title entry of, Losing Vitality. I saw it read, Title Entry. Losing Vitality. Attribute Details. Normally, vitality will continue to drain from the body as lifespan increases. But in some cases, it can also be sucked by other organisms. Accidentally lost vitality can be restored to normal levels on its own, but once the vitality is sucked out, it will be completely dead. Judging from the attributes of the entries, there are many kinds of creatures that can suck away vitality. Lu Sheng said in a deep voice. He is losing vitality, but I don't know what is sucking it away from him. Have you checked everything on him? Luo Bishan nodded aside. Everything has been checked and there is nothing unusual. Yang Yuyan looked at the lunatic lying on the ground, her heart twisting. Only by finding a way to revive the madman can we know what that thing is. Lu Sheng immediately remembered his random recovery peach, and was about to take it out from the toolbar, but at this moment, the madman lying on the ground slowly opened his eyes. Yang Yuyan looked at Lu Sheng with surprise. Xiao Lu, what method did you use to save him? Lu Sheng suddenly looked confused. Did I save him? I haven't done anything yet. But now that the madman is awake, he has a chance to know what he encountered. Lu Sheng quickly took out a random recovery peach and handed it to the madman. Try eating this. Fortunately, what the madman ate was the flat peach to restore his physical strength, and his complexion immediately improved a lot. Yang Yuyan then asked, Madman, do you remember what happened before you fainted? The madman gently closed his eyes, thought for a moment, and then said tiredly. You must not lie. Yang Yuyan and others immediately looked at each other. Why is there another one called Don't Lie? Why does everyone hear the warning differently? Lu Sheng originally guessed that the thing might be a bug, but how could a bug understand whether a person was lying? The madman slowly sat up from the ground, managed to brace himself and continued. At that time, I walked to the end of an alley alone and saw a sentence on the corner of the wall, never lie. In order to be brave, I subconsciously said, we have a lot of people here, don't be pretentious here. As a result, I suddenly felt very tired on my shoulders, and gradually I couldn't raise my eyelids. After that, I lost my memory. Lu Sheng's brows immediately knitted together. Tired but nothing on your shoulders. The madman nodded affirmatively. Although I can't see them, I can feel them around me. As soon as the madman finished speaking, a cold wind suddenly blew in the alley outside the small courtyard. The wind roared, and the door of the small courtyard was knocked open with a bang. Yang Yuyan quickly shouted, No, they are coming. He held the magic blade across his hand and waved it vigorously in midair. However, there was no obstruction in the air, only waves of dark wind blowing past the ears, causing all the hairs on the body to stand up unconsciously. Ji Xiaoxiao was half crouched, holding a long black sword tightly in his hand, nervously watching everything in front of him, and shouted in the strong wind that filled the courtyard. Xiaoyan, these things have no entity, they seem weird. Weird. When everyone in the Shungshan Guild heard the word weird, they all shivered. They can fight mutant beasts and shadows. But how should they start with this invisible and invisible monster? No wonder so many Angel Guild members died so suddenly. Because what they are facing is simply something that they cannot touch. This cold wind hovered in this dilapidated courtyard for a full 5 minutes. Many Shungshan Guild members gradually gave up their resistance after trying various methods. They looked up at the sky with calm faces, helplessly waiting for their fate to be pronounced. However, the cold wind slowly stopped. No one fell, no one died. It was as if a normal hurricane had come and gone in a hurry. Ji Xiaoxiao looked at the small courtyard that had returned to peace in surprise, and said in disbelief. Why did you just leave like this? Luo Beishan shook his head. It doesn't make sense. They clearly attacked the members of the Angel Guild. There is no way they will let us go. Lu Sheng was also puzzled at this moment. Luo Beishan is right. The many bursts of cold wind just now were clearly coming towards the Shungshan Guild members in the yard. It's impossible to give up halfway. So why stopped? There is only one explanation, that is, they have found their target. Lu Sheng stared at the door of the courtyard and murmured to himself. Weird, weird, there is also a word for weird. He was suddenly enlightened. Since weirdos are also weird, they will naturally look for that young man. Lu Sheng turned his head to look at Zhu Jojo in vain, and happened to see Zhu Jojo holding his knees with both hands, panting and looking at him. Xiaolu, let me use your fatigue hard drive again. I don't know what's wrong. I've been exhausted since I just finished running around the city wall. Lu Sheng suddenly understood many things. No wonder I felt a gust of cold wind in the hardware store, but everyone was safe. No wonder Zhu Jojo has become very tired since leaving the hardware store. No wonder the madman woke up inexplicably after a few people entered the small courtyard. Did all these weird things crawl on the back of Zhu Jojo alone? Man, this is great love. Lu Sheng looked at Zhu Jojo with respect, and saw a new title slowly emerging above his head. A strong man who is slowly losing his vitality. Lu Sheng was immediately surprised and asked quickly. Lao Zhu, are you okay? Zhu Jojo squatted half-crouched, twisted his neck from side to side, and gasped. Other than feeling heavy on my body, there's nothing wrong with it. Lu Sheng glanced at the top of Zhu Jojo's back again. It was empty, nothing could be seen. He turned to look at the confused people in Luobai Mountain with a solemn expression. Those monsters have not left. They are probably all on Zhu Jojo's back now. Everyone in the Shungshan Guild was immediately shocked and turned to look at Zhu Jojo. At this moment, Yang Yuyan suddenly rushed over, holding the magic breaking blade in her hand, and quickly passed over Zhu Jojo's head. The blade cut through the air, still not encountering any obstruction. Yang Yuyan returned without success, looked at the panting Zhu Jojo and said. Although the demon breaking blade can cut invisible objects, it doesn't seem to be effective against invisible monsters. Ling Long immediately shouted anxiously. Then what should I do? What should I do with my brother Zhu? Zhu Jojo himself was very calm. But why am I different from others? My eyelids are not heavy, and I don't faint like him. Lu Sheng thought helplessly. Are there few things that make you different from others? Shadows couldn't kill you before, but now even monsters can't bring you down. If you don't know, I thought you were the protagonist. But when I think about it, the title, slowly losing vitality, above Zhu Jojo's head actually exists. We must find a way to eliminate these weird things. If he accidentally loses Zhu Jojo, he will regret it for the rest of his life. At this time, Yang Yuyan and Ji Xiaoxiao were still anxiously thinking of ways to kill the weirdo. Ji Xiaoxiao muttered and said, if it's something weird, it's really going to be a bit troublesome. If I can't make them appear, my demon sealing sword won't be of use. Yang Yuyan bit her red lips gently. I have read in books before that human blood may be able to repel monsters. Maybe we can give it a try. As he spoke, he raised the magic breaking blade and was about to cut it towards his fingertips. At this moment, Lu Sheng suddenly shouted. Wait, maybe you don't have to go to such trouble, I have other ways. Any solution. Eat. Ha. Everyone saw Lu Sheng take out something that looked like a bottle of seasoning from the item list and shook it towards everyone. This thing might be able to help. The details of the bottle quickly appeared in front of Lu Sheng. Item name. Weird seasoning. Item rating. Rare B. Introduction to the props. Special seasoning for cooking weird things. After applying it, the weird things can be enjoyed as delicacies. In fact, anything tastes delicious when sprinkled with seasonings. This strange prop was accidentally obtained by Lu Sheng while rummaging through trash cans in Shangjing City, and now it seems that it can be put to use just right. It's just that it might be a bit too harsh. But at this moment Lu Sheng couldn't care so much anymore and shouted to Zhu Jojo. Lao Zhu, close your eyes quickly. Then he quickly unscrewed the bottle cap and sprinkled the seasoning over. Zhu Jojo only felt a light powder falling on his body. It smells delicious and a little tempting. He stuck out his tongue and licked it, then looked at Lu Sheng with a sad face. Xiao Lu, what do you mean by sprinkling spices on me? Are you going to eat me? At this time, he saw all the members of the Shangjing Guild in front of him looking behind him in stunned silence. It was like seeing the most amazing thing in the world. Zhu Jojo turned his head curiously. I saw more than a dozen strange monsters lying densely on my back. The powdered flavoring just outlines their look. It is roughly similar to the shape of the ghosts on TV. They are stacked one on top of the other, and there are 18 layers of them, just like stacking arhats. At this time, the monster closest to him was biting his neck, sucking something greedily. Seeing Zhu Jojo turn his head, the weirdo stopped moving his mouth and grinned at him with a mocking face. That expression seemed to say, "What are you looking at, idiot? You can't see me, so what can you do to me?" At this time, Bada, this weirdo suddenly found that his arm had been twisted off. It looked at Lu Sheng who had twisted off his arm with an expression of disbelief. Then he watched helplessly as he stuffed his arm into his mouth and chewed it. What's the situation? Was I eaten by people? Lu Sheng nodded slightly while biting Wei Wei's arm. It's not bad, it tastes like charcoal grilled bullfrog legs. As he spoke, he also twisted off the other arm. He handed it to Zhu Jojo as if nothing had happened. Don't you have a taste of the weirdness on your own back? No matter how bold Zhu Jojo is, he is a little numb now. He looked at Lu Sheng with a horrified expression and shook his head gently. Seeing that Zhu Jojo rejected him, Lu Sheng had no choice but to turn his head and look at everyone in the Shangjing Guild. His eyes swept around the crowd, and finally fell on Yang Yuyan. Xiaoyan, you should take the lead and taste it, otherwise I won't be able to eliminate so many weirdos by myself. Yang Yuyan instinctively wanted to take a step back, but based on her trust in Lu Sheng, she still took the arm with suspicion. Try it quickly, I really didn't lie to you. Under Lu Sheng's eager and sincere gaze, Yang Yuyan had no choice but to bite the bullet on Wei Wei's arm. Yang Yuyan glanced at Lu Sheng in disbelief, and then took another gentle bite. It really tastes like the charcoal grilled bullfrog, Lu Sheng said. Lu Sheng immediately breathed a sigh of relief and greeted the Shangjing Guild members behind Yang Yuyan. You haven't had lunch yet, come here and have a try. People are curious. What's more, even Captain Yang said it was delicious, so he couldn't try it no matter what. So under the leadership of Luo Baishan and Ji Yu Xiaoxiao, more than a dozen members of the Shangjing Guild stepped forward. You tear off an arm, I'll tear off an arm. In a short time, the monsters at the bottom were dismembered. Linglong also grabbed an arm and put it in her mouth to taste it, and immediately nodded excitedly to Zhu Jojo. It's delicious, Brother Zhu. As he spoke, he tore off a small piece of meat and stuffed it into Zhu Jojo's mouth. The team members who tasted the strange delicious food were immediately out of control. Just like locusts seeing the ears of wheat, they pulled the weird things down from Zhu Jojo's back. Poor those weirdos, they didn't realize the seriousness of the matter until this moment. He quickly screamed and floated down from Zhu Jojo's back, running around in the courtyard in a panic. Some escaped by luck, while more became the team members' meal. At this time, I heard Zhu Jojo say, "Ah." Everyone stopped for a moment and turned to look at Zhu Jojo. The madman looked dazed and bit Zhu Jojo's arm. Zhu Jojo cursed angrily. Why did you bite me? The lunatic suddenly blushed with embarrassment and apologized repeatedly. Sorry, I just got dizzy because you smell a little delicious too. With Zhu Jojo's natural monster-absorbing physique and the protection of strange condiments, the disaster in the second-level city was passed through without any danger. A new mission message popped up in everyone's notification bar. There are still 10 seconds left before the first-level city gate opens. 10, 9, 8. Lu Sheng, Yang Yuyan and others led the members of the Shengxian Guild and quickly passed through the first-level city gate the moment the city gate opened. At this time, the mission information of the last city jumped in front of everyone's eyes. Main mission update. Sifang City Survival Challenge. Congratulations to everyone for arriving at the last level of the city. There will be no other disasters in this level of the city. Players only need to survive until the last moment. Remind again, after 15 minutes, which side has more remaining players will determine which side has the home field advantage. Tianhe Guards vs Sinner Warriors, 63 vs 81. The 1-minute protection countdown starts now, please hurry up and hide 059. Xiaoyan, it seems that the purpose of this important city is to have a fight between the two of us. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao touched the invincible golden light on his body curiously and asked. Should we hide first, or attack with all our strength? Yang Yuyan carried the laser gun on her back, looked at the street in front of her and the crowds of people scattering in a hurry and replied. We hide the amateurs, and the rest of us attack with all our strength. Ji Yu Xiaoxiao was suddenly enlightened and gave Yang Yuyan a thumbs up. Xiaoyan is still thoughtful. Yang Yuyan turned to look at everyone. Let's divide into groups first, Xiaolu, Jojo, and Linglong. You will form a group of 3. The rest, myself, Xiaoxiao, and Beishan will lead a group. There are 4 groups in total. Let's split up. As Yang Yuyan spoke, she took out 2 pairs of wireless communication headsets from the toolbar and handed them to Zhu Jojo and Linglong. Then he said, let's divide the work again. One group is responsible for protecting the criminals, and the third group is responsible for chasing down the Tianhe guards. Do you have any ideas? Lu Sheng was just about to say that they wanted to choose to protect the criminals, when he saw that Linglong had already picked up the laser cannon with an impatient look. Our group is responsible for destroying the soldiers of the Tianhe guards. Hiss. Zhu Jojo bared his teeth and Yang Yuyan glanced at Linglong in surprise, then nodded towards Lu Sheng and the others. Okay, then you should pay attention to safety. After saying that, he looked at Ji Yu Xiaoxiao and Luo Beishan. Since you have no other ideas, Beishan will be responsible for protecting the criminals, and Xiaoxiao and I will be responsible for the pursuit. Good. The rest of the Shengxian Guild members agreed in unison. At this time, the 1-minute invincible countdown has just entered the last 10 seconds. Yang Yuyan made a departure gesture toward the street ahead, and the 3 groups of Shengxian Guild members disappeared almost in the blink of an eye. The 3 of them, Lu Sheng, were left alone in the wind. Zhu Jojo murmured to himself. Are we looking a little too unprofessional? Lu Sheng pretended to cough to cover up his inner embarrassment. We are amateurs, so we should behave like amateurs. Then he followed Yang Yuyan's example, raised a hand, pointed to a street on the right, cleared his throat and said. Then let's choose this street and go out. Hey. Before Lu Sheng finished speaking, he saw Linglong walking towards the street on the left carrying a laser cannon. In the live broadcast room, a string of friendly comments were immediately left. Laughing to death, these 3 idiots. From this point of view, there is still a difference between professional guild members and ordinary amateurs. Although I admit they are awesome. Perhaps because everyone was hiding, the entire street was deserted and became the safest place. Lu Sheng and the others walked for nearly 10 minutes without encountering a single soldier from the Tianhe guards. He clicked on the comparison table of the number of people on both sides in the task panel. Tianhe guards vs Sinner Warriors, 60 vs 78. 3 people were missing on each side, and it seemed that no one could find each other. Zhu Jojo followed Linglong, raising his arms to smell it from time to time. Lu Sheng couldn't help but frown. Lao Zhu, when did you develop such a quirk? Zhu Jojo said, poof. It's not because of you that I smell like spice. I feel like I've already gotten the hang of it. How can I chase girls in the future? Lu Sheng couldn't help but blinked curiously. Don't you already have Linglong? What other girls are you chasing after? Zhu Jojo, booed. I only think of her as my sister. Didn't I tell you last time that we got the certificate to help her complete her mission? Lu Sheng shrugged noncommittally. Speaking of which, he and Yang Yuyan also wanted to complete the task. Therefore, Zhu Jojo's thoughts are not difficult to understand. At this time, Zhu Jojo sighed softly. Hey, speaking of which, I fell out of love again this week. Hearing Zhu Jojo mention his love story again, Lu Sheng cheered up unconsciously. Don't you still want to say that this time you downloaded the dungeon to heal your emotional wounds? Zhu Jojo looked at Lu Sheng as if he had been guessed. Did you guess all this? It's so dangerous in the dungeon, why would I come down here if not to heal my emotional wounds? 3 drops of cold sweat immediately flowed down next to Lu Sheng's head. Then why did you fall out of love again this time? Zhu Jojo recalled the sad past and sighed again. Hey, it was me who offended her father this time. As he recalled it, he smacked his lips bitterly. Actually, it's just recent. Her father brought me along for his 60th birthday. Lu Sheng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. It's only been a few days, and I'm taking you to meet your parents. You really have some skills. Zhu Jojo shook his head. It's not my fault. I'd rather I didn't go there last night. Because I wasn't familiar with it, I couldn't say anything during the whole process. Then I finally got to eat longevity noodles. I wanted to show off and said that longevity noodles are also available in our place. Call it noodles. Then, after Zhu Jojo finished speaking, he sighed again. Lu Sheng on the side looked at Zhu Jojo dumbfounded and said in his heart, as expected of you. Otherwise, you have to be called a pure love warrior who has been dumped countless times. There is no title that can be obtained for no reason. It was all earned bit by my own ability. Zhu Jojo wanted to say something more, but suddenly he saw a laser beam hitting Lu Sheng. Then a scream of, ah, came from not far away. In the mission panel in front of Lu Sheng, the number of Tianhe guards immediately decreased by 1. No, there's an ambush. Zhu Jojo quickly took Lu Sheng and Linglong and hid in an abandoned shop next to him. At this time, more than a dozen amateur Tianhe guard soldiers were spotted one after another around the street just now. The leader walked to the door of the store with a laser gun in his hand. Finally, 3 criminals fell into the trap. Another short man beside him said cautiously. Be careful, the person just now seemed to have back injuries. What are you afraid of? In the worst case, we will blow them up with high-pressure grenades. The leading guard shouted loudly inside. Those inside, do you want to come out and die on your own, or should I blow you to pieces with a grenade? Zhu Jojo hid in the abandoned shop and said in a low voice. Are we surrounded? Linglong snorted and picked up the laser cannon. Let's fight our way out. Lu Sheng quickly held down Linglong and smiled mysteriously at the two of them. On the surface, it looks like we are surrounded, but in fact, it saves us time. Zhu Jojo looked at Lu Sheng confused, and saw Lu Sheng looking at the live broadcast camera outside. There are 2 live balls. You guys can help me knock them down during the chaos. Zhu Jojo and Linglong nodded. Lu Sheng then shouted loudly. Don't throw grenades, we'll come out and die on our own. While stalling for time, he took out the black and white impermanence summoning ring and pressed it lightly. 2 figures, one black and one white, appeared in front of Lu Sheng again. The fat He Wucheng still looked listless and picked his teeth. Bye-bye, it's out again. Bai Wucheng hummed noncommittally, and then said, Yo. Xiao He, look, this kid is getting rich. He Wucheng also glanced at Lu Sheng and immediately became energetic. Oh, it's almost 6,000 points. That's a good relationship. I'll calculate how much time it will take. 100 points is 1 minute, and 6,000 points is 1 hour. For nothing, we can enjoy Masaki. Bai Wucheng nodded repeatedly. Then what are you waiting for? Let's go quickly. Walk. You two, wait for me. Lu Sheng's face was full of black lines and he stopped the black and white Wucheng duo who were about to go out. He Wucheng gave Lu Sheng a dissatisfied look. Bye-bye, he is going to stop us, do you want to check how much life he has left? Bai Wucheng picked up the book of yin and yang and started flipping through it. Lu Sheng felt his head hurt when he looked at the 2 ancestors in front of him. Not to mention consuming 100 points every minute, I still want to go to work and fish. If he didn't have to ask them for help now, he really wouldn't want to call these two out. Then he thought of a reason and said hurriedly, "You two have misunderstood. I stopped you because this is an abandoned city and there is nothing outside." "Nothing at all." He Wuchang raised his eyebrows and looked at Lu Sheng angrily. "Why did you call us out for nothing? I would like to ask you two for a favor. I promise that when I return to the real world next time, I will definitely ask you two to come out to Masaki. I promise to the Lord of Hell." He Wuchang heard the words, Prince of Hell, and reluctantly asked, "Tell me, what do you want us to do this time?" "I want you two to help me take away those people outside." Bai Wuchang glanced out the door listlessly. "Oh, there are 17 people. It's not that difficult. It can be solved in 1 minute, but 100 points is a bit too little." Lu Sheng said quickly, "The fixed price, 300 points, is still the same as last time." Black and White looked at each other and nodded. "Okay, I've accepted the order." At this time, outside the abandoned shop, the leading guard soldier saw that Lu Sheng and others had not come out yet, and he suddenly became angry. "These grandsons dare to lie to me." As he spoke, he grabbed the high-voltage grenade and threw it into the store. At this moment, 2 laser beams were suddenly shot out of the store. While shooting the grenade, he also killed the 2 live balls in the sky. Immediately afterwards, more than 10 capsule-shaped things suddenly appeared in front of his eyes, accompanied by 2 pitiful screams. "Go ahead, Soul Capsule." The leading guard soldier was about to curse, WTF, but found that he couldn't make a sound. What's even more outrageous is that he actually saw his own body slowly moving away from him. Before he had time to respond to what was going on, his vision suddenly went dark and he was already locked in a capsule. Black and White Wuchang waved their hands and summoned 17 ordinary soul capsules back to their side. Bai Wuchang turned to look at Lu Sheng. "Okay, the task is completed. If you can't do Masaki, you should go back to sleep." He Wuchang then waved to Lu Sheng. "Remember what you just promised us. Also, I want to give you a good review." In less than a minute, 17 Tianhe guard soldiers fell on the road in front of the abandoned shop. In the mission panel in front of Lu Sheng, the number of Tianhe guards immediately changed from 57 to 40. The current PK situation of the number of people on both sides is Tianhe guards versus Sinner warriors, 40 vs 70. Almost twice the difference. At this time, there were less than 4 minutes left on the clock. You can imagine how difficult it would be for the Tianhe Guardians to make a comeback. On another street at the same time, the 4-person team led by Yang Yuyan finally found another amateur guard soldier. After a chase, he was successfully shot to death. At this time, I saw on the mission panel that the number of Tianhe guards first decreased by 1, and then immediately dropped by 17. A shocked member of the Shungshan Guild next to him stammered, "Captain Yang, what kind of monster did we kill just now?" Yang Yuyan was also startled and quickly asked through the wireless communicator. "Xiao Xiao, was it your group that killed 17 people?" Yu Xiao Xiao was also in shock at this time. "It's not us, is it you Beishan?" No, could it be that it was you who did this, fat man?" Lu Sheng felt that it would be difficult to hide this matter, but he did not want to be the one who stood out, so he said calmly, "It was Lao Zhu who did it." We were all shocked. Zhu Jojo was really shocked and looked at Lu Sheng with wide eyes. "Did I do it?" Lu Sheng nodded without any doubt. "It was you who blew up the grenade just now, right?" Zhu Jojo nodded. "That's no problem." Lu Sheng then turned to look at Linglong and said apologetically, "Sorry, I just forgot to mention you." Linglong smiled. "It's okay. Brother Zhu was praised, and I was praised. In another corner of the first-level city, everyone in the Angel Guild, who had finally killed 8 criminal warriors, looked more and more embarrassed. Lin Yang grabbed the gold-rimmed glasses, threw them on the ground and crushed them. These amateur losers from MLGB can't even do something as simple as hiding. "Uncle Ma, what do you think we should do next?" The man named Uncle Ma was actually an old man about 50 years old. In a super guild, if you are still playing a dungeon at this age, you must either have extraordinary abilities or have super powerful equipment. Uncle Ma said calmly, "There are less than 3 minutes left before the end of the mission, and we only have 6 people left, so why not give up on this level?" Lin Yang felt unwilling. Wouldn't that be giving in? How will the fans in the live broadcast room view us? Uncle Ma patted Lin Yong on the shoulder. Young master, losing for the moment is not a loss. The real showdown between the two of us will begin in the next game. I haven't taken action yet, what do you have to worry about? Lin Yong finally calmed down the anger in his heart a little, took out a pair of gold-rimmed glasses from the item list, and put them on his face. I'm almost mad. With the help of Uncle Ma, your treasure, how can they be our opponents? Leave this round to them. 3 minutes later, the message that the mission was over appeared in front of everyone. The main mission Sifang City Survival Challenge has officially ended. Congratulations to the sinners for winning this challenge. According to the rules, the next official matchup Battle of Two Realms will officially start 1 day later at Wuji Mountain, the home ground of the sinners' side. The 1v1 arena confrontation mode will be adopted. Whichever side fights to the end will receive generous rewards. Strong forces collide, heroes confront each other, tomorrow is about to happen. As night falls, red clouds fill the Wuji Mountain. Since the dungeon has not yet reached the resting point, all criminal players cannot return to the real world and can only settle in Wuji Mountain tonight. The resting place tonight is arranged very interestingly. It happens to be number 1404, the gathering place for the first copy. At this time, nearly 100 tents were already set up on a huge piece of flat land. There are only 70 players left on the criminal side, and 1 cap per person is more than enough. After the Shungshan Guild soldiers arranged their accommodation, they all swarmed around Zhu Jojo's tent. Brother Zhu, I heard that you faced the Shadow Demon alone this morning and saved Captain Yang. Brother Zhu, how did you kill 17 Tianhe Guard soldiers by yourself? Brother Zhu, please tell the truth. Are you the Lone Ranger from District 104? Zhu Jojo was a little impatient at first, but gradually, he lost himself in the shouts of Brother Zhu's voice. He began to fabricate his own heroic deeds. Lu Sheng never liked crowded places, so he found a quiet corner to be alone. He remembered that today's weekly task had not been completed yet, so he opened the chat window with Yang Yuyan and recorded a voice. I love you, my wife. Just when he was about to send it out, a gentle and emotional voice suddenly came from behind him. Why are you here alone? Lu Sheng turned his head hurriedly and found that it was Yang Yuyan. He quickly closed the dialogue box and said with a smile. When I came back here today, I suddenly remembered something. Compared to Zhu Jojo, who was surrounded by the team members, Yang Yuyan was more interested in the other half of her contract. She always felt that she couldn't see this man clearly, whether it was his appearance or his heart. So it was rare that Yang Yuyan actually took the initiative to sit down next to a man. Can you tell me what you are thinking about? The evening breeze blew the tips of Yang Yuyan's hair, bringing with it a very pleasant fragrance of viola flowers, which made Lu Sheng feel a little intoxicated without realizing it. At this time, he did have something on his mind. After hesitating for a moment, he finally spoke. Xiaoyan, do you believe in game pollution? Yang Yuyan was slightly startled when she heard the words, game pollution. Then he looked around cautiously, and then nodded gently. I know, but there are so many people around here, it's not convenient to talk. Lu Sheng did not expect that Yang Yuyan also knew about game pollution. For him now, this is like a drowning person suddenly seeing driftwood, because there are many questions in his mind that he wants to prove. So he quickly said, I know a place where there may be no one. Come with me. Yang Yuyan nodded, but did not immediately follow Lu Sheng. Instead, she raised her hand to make a gesture with the live ball above her head. The live broadcast ball immediately turned around and flew somewhere else. Looking at Lu Sheng, who looked surprised, Yang Yuyan explained with a smile. This is my camera for live broadcast tracking. During non-task phases, you can temporarily stop following the camera. After all, I'll have some privacy to deal with, too. Lu Sheng nodded half-knowingly, and then led Yang Yuyan towards the cave halfway up the mountain. After passing through this abandoned stone cave, the two finally came to the rocky hill where Lu Sheng first met the Mecha Monkey King. Although it is a rocky hill, the scenery here is particularly pleasant. The moon is very round and there are many stars. The evening breeze was gentle and everything was quiet. Sure enough, there is no one else here. Lu Sheng took Yang Yuyan to a pile of rocks and sat down. She turned around and was about to speak when she was suddenly stunned by Yang Yuyan's profile. Smooth jawline, small red lips, delicate nose bridge and eyes as bright as autumn water. This was probably the most beautiful profile he had ever seen. Seeing that Lu Sheng had not spoken, Yang Yuyan couldn't help but asked curiously. What's wrong? Lu Sheng quickly came back to his senses. No, it's nothing. Are you saying that game pollution is real? Yang Yuyan sighed softly, nodded and said. It's true. My grandfather was contaminated in the dungeon. After returning to the real world, he contracted a strange disease. The curse that pollutes Black Dragon Mountain. When Lu Sheng heard the 3 words, Hailong Mountain, his heart suddenly jumped. Can you tell me more about it? Yang Yuyan nodded. That was 2 years ago. In fact, according to my grandfather's age, he didn't have to download that dungeon. But because it was the first S-level dungeon, it had special meaning for all guilds, so the next time he downloaded the dungeon, he decided to lead the team himself. Then he opened a hidden mission that no one had ever opened, but it was this hidden mission that suddenly tainted the entire game. All the players who entered the dungeon at that time got strange diseases, and my grandfather was not immune. But fortunately, what's more, his symptoms are much milder than everyone else. Lu Sheng asked hurriedly and curiously. What's that hidden mission? Yang Yuyan shook her head. After Grandpa came back, no matter how others asked, he never mentioned what happened in the copy. He just felt very depressed and guilty. So far, no one knows what happened in it. Now 2 years have passed. All the people who entered the Black Dragon Mountain dungeon back then have died except for my grandfather. Although my grandfather's symptoms are not as severe as theirs, his physical condition is also deteriorating. Yang Yuyan's words were almost exactly the same as what Yu Wenshan said to her a few days ago. Only then did Lu Sheng confirm. It turned out that Yu Wenshan and Yu Huaiyan were really not deceiving themselves. Yang Yuyan asked curiously, why are you suddenly concerned about game pollution? This time Lu Sheng was very honest and gave a complete account of what happened when Yu Wenshan came to find him a few days ago. After listening to Lu Sheng's words, Yang Yuyan frowned slightly and said, if game contamination does occur, I suggest you tell the Research Institute as soon as possible, because in order to crack the game contamination, it is very important to accurately restore the situation in the hidden mission. Lu Sheng nodded very seriously this time. I have decided in my heart that after this copy is released, I will contact Yu Huaiyan as soon as possible. Speaking of which, I want to apologize to you. Yang Yuyan suddenly changed the topic and turned to look at Lu Sheng. In order to save my grandfather, I had to recreate the hidden mission of the year, but the Research Association banned all information and materials related to Black Dragon Mountain. It said that unless someone's ladder points can reach 50,000 points and awaken the first profession, they will go back to Black Dragon Mountain. There is no need to discuss anything about it. That's why I tried my best to get more points. In the last dungeon, in order to get 100 points, I refused to speak, which caused you a lot of trouble. It's really, feel sorry. Yang Yuyan's voice became lower and lower at the end of her words because of guilt. Lu Sheng shook his head gently. I did not understand it before, but after hearing what you said just now, I admire you very much. You must be willing to take such a big risk to save your grandfather. You must care about him very much. Yang Yuyan was suddenly stunned, then raised her head and looked at the stars in the sky, thinking for a long time. Actually, I don't know why I care about Grandpa so much. I just thought about it. Maybe it's because I was afraid of going to kindergarten when I was young, because every time I came home, the adults would go out, which made me very insecure. Later, my grandpa told me to let me go to school with peace of mind. As long as I got home, he would definitely be waiting for me at the door. After that day, he was waiting at the door every day to pick me up from school until I went to elementary school. As Yang Yuyan was talking, she suddenly burst into laughter. Of course, I found out later that as the chairman of the Yang group, he was very busy at work every day. But in order to abide by the agreement with me, he would deliberately spare an hour and make a special trip back. So I think maybe it was the sense of security that my grandfather gave me when I was young that made me want to cure his disease no matter what. Lu Sheng listened to Yang Yuyan's narration very attentively. When he heard the sentence, "He is the chairman of the Yang group," his heart suddenly became excited. It reminds me of the curse of Black Dragon Mountain and the title of retired parent of a top wealthy family. Lu Sheng finally realized. So it turns out that Lao Yang is her grandfather. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.